call to order. Roll call, please.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Keefe,
Yes.
Director Nasser,
Yes.
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Smant.
Yes.
At this time, I would like a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Keefe,
Yes.
Director Nasser,
Yes.
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Smant.
Yes.
At this time, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, or if there is any additions or corrections.
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. But how did we?
Before you vote, I would like to again point out I would like to point out a couple things in the financial report. So if you could turn to the general manager's report, in the first 3 pages or so is on the financial information. There's a couple things that are really getting some people are looking at our financial reports, they're not understanding them appropriately, and then there's making comments on our reports. So I've specifically, and let me point out a couple things. One of the things that it's getting a lot of scrutiny out there is our cash balances. So I addressed that. If you look at our January 2021, January 20 balance sheet, you can see that we have $26,756,000 of cash and cash equivalents. That compares to 23 million last year at this time. So it's an increase of 3 million in cash and cash equivalents. So a $3 million increase in cash over the year. But what everyone needs to understand is if you look down in the liabilities, we have borrowed $11 million. That is not an accumulation of cash. We have lost $8 million in that transaction because we borrowed the money. Now, we've also used the cash that we have generated for different things. Those are all included in your financial report. So we have added, if you look at the capital assets and you look at the additions of construction work in progress and the added capital portion, the capital minus the depreciation. So the total capital assets is up from 27 million to 34 million, which is about 7.2 million. So we've spent $7.2 million on capital assets. We've raised our cash by 3 million and we've borrowed almost that entire amount. Now, where do we get our cash from? We get our cash from the operations of the utility, which are included in your income statement. So if we look at our income statement this year, which is also included, you can see that we are, first of all, operating within budget, and our income is it's about 6.7% above budget. So we've generated about $5 million of income, which includes another $900,000 of non-expense depreciation or non-cash depreciation. So that actually adds to that. So depreciation is a non-cash item. So you can see that goes through to the bottom, that would go through the bottom line as well. So we've generated from the utility operations about $5.8 million of cash from the 7 months of operations in this year. So again, we're spending the cash, we're bringing in cash, we're borrowing cash. The net result is what you see on your balance sheet. Now, is that a lot of cash? Is that a little amount of cash? How does that compare to how much cash you should have? If you look back in 2016 in the cost of service study, and I've included that in our report, in your monthly financial report from the board, when it conducted its cost of service study, which we're currently doing, part of determining that cost of service study is for the independent advisors to tell the board what is an appropriate cash balance, all right? They did that in 2016. And what they told you is you did not approve the cash balance or the cash reserve amounts that they suggested because we were significantly below the level that they recommended, all right? So in that cost of service study, incidentally, they did project over the next 5 years where your cash balances will be if you implement those rates, all right? If you go back 5 years and look at what your cash balance would be as of June 30, 2020 and June 30, 2021, the June 30, 2020 cash balance estimated in 2016 was $26,700,000. If you look at where we're at right now, we're at $26,756. So we're $56,000 more cash on our balance sheet than what was anticipated 5 years ago in our cost of service study. So we are not ahead of schedule. We are not banking more cash than what is anticipated. We are exactly where we were anticipated to be by our cost of service study 5 years ago. All right. So somehow, I don't know where this is coming from, but there's this idea that we're, quote, stockpiling cash. We are not stockpiling cash. We are exactly in the cash position where we were recommended to be by our independent analysis 5 years ago. All right. Now, what is going to happen in the next cost of service study, which you've approved and will be presented to you in April, they will come in with a new cash reserve recommendation for the next 5 years. All right. In all likelihood, we will now be within the requirements of that, what they will be, and the board will then be able to approve or deny or alter what their recommended cash reserves are for the next 5 years. And then we will set rates accordingly to generate that amount of cash and maintain that amount of cash. All right. That's how it works. But for the interesting thing as well that I've included in your report is what everyone needs to realize is I went back to, quote, healthier years, all right, and said, okay, what was the board's cash position before we started dwindling our cash? All right. If you go back to 2020, or excuse me, 2002 and 2003, the board had on average, and that's what's in your financial report here, between current cash, fuel inventory, and restricted cash, you had almost $34 million of cash in 2002 and 2003. And then what happened as the cost started increasing, we didn't raise our rates up as quickly as our expenses were increasing, so you started dwindling cash. So in that period from 2005 to 2015, your cash balance was going. And then in 2015 and 16, we increased we set our rates appropriately, we paid off the debt, and we anticipated building that cash reserves back up. Exactly like what's happened. So nothing in this income statement or balance sheet is anything different than what was assumed 5 years ago. All right. So I think the important thing to realize is that we're not like The other thing that's being said is that we're saving a ton of money buying from the marketplace. All right? On your income statement, if you look at the net purchase power on the income statement, net purchase power for the first 7 months of the year was $8,639,051. All right? The year-to-date budget was $8,911,000, so we're $272,000 below budget. All right? So how does the budget for purchase power compare to last year? Last year, we had two line items. We had fuel on the plant and purchase power. When you combine those two together, we were at $9,031,000. So we are down approximately $400,000 on $9 million from last year. You divide that by the number of kilowatt hours in each year, our cost of purchase power is down 1.8%. 1.8%. The other savings that are generated on our budget are not related, and this is where the majority of our savings are coming in the transition, is not in buying cheaper power. That's not where our savings are coming from. The savings are coming from fewer employees and fewer fixed costs at Sims. All right? So those are not, it's not like we're saving all kinds of money on our purchase power. Our purchase power costs are actually up because we're buying more expensive transmission, we're buying more renewable energy, we're buying all of the capacity that we used to be able to just use at Sims. So our purchase power costs are up, our fixed costs at Sims are down, and our labor costs are down. So that's the big ticket changes on what's happening year over year. But for some reason, the public is getting the idea that we're saving a ton of money on our purchases and we're building cash. That is not what our financial statements would suggest. All right. So I just want, again, I've been reporting on this every month for the last 6 months, telling the board what's happening. But for some reason, the information that's being presented at these meetings is not getting accurately portrayed in the public eye from some people. So there's significant differences amongst what's being said and what's on our financial statements. All right. So I think it's important for the board to recognize what those differences are. Now, the last thing I did put in is I did put in a balance sheet comparison between January of 2021, the one that you have today, that the balance sheet today, and what it was 4 years ago in January of 17. All right. So that again is, how does your balance sheet compare to what it was 4 years ago? Not just 1 year ago, but 4 years ago. And if you look at this, accumulation of cash is about $12 million. So yes, there is more cash generated. We generated about $12 million of cash. But if you look again, down at the bottom, we borrowed $11 million. So the operations are basically keeping our cash position stable. Cash is going out as fast as it's coming in, and we're borrowing $11 million. All right. So I think that's the important thing to remember in what we're doing. No, I don't have any other things to report on this consent agenda.
For half of this room, my half, are people who have lived in Grand Haven a long time. And most of the people that are on Zoom are people that have lived here a long time. If your memory is good, you would remember when North Ottawa Hospital went through this exact same scenario about 25 years ago, where they had an enormous amount of cash. Everybody thought that they were gouging, they were doing this, they were doing that. Their situation was very similar to this one, and there was pushback at that time. So this is not a new story for Grand Haven. Ready for your general manager? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment? I thought we did that. I did. All right, call for a vote then, please.
All right. Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Keefe. You gotta push your speaker. Director Nasser,
Yes.
Yes.
Chairperson Smant,
Yes.
At this time, I would ask for public comment.
For those of you on Zoom, it's the same process we're doing every month. If you'd like to use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, so I can ask you to unmute, we'll get you going. As a reminder, it's not there's no video. I can't see everybody's video, so it's the raise your hand feature built into the Zoom software.
Let's move forward.
Hang on. I know there's a feeling in this room that we should not be reading these emails, but I will submit that these people want their information presented at this meeting. And I think they should be read either now or at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we have been struggling with this for some time. I think the chair and the vice chair have been deferring to the idea of reading them all. And the question has been submitted to our legal counsel. What is the requirements of the Open Meetings Act to provide public comment? All right, now we're not trying to distract from anybody getting their input into the record, but the public comment period at your meetings is for people to verbally give you their public comment. That's what it's for. These letters were all received by you already via your email and were already provided to you before the meeting. And they requested that they be read at the meeting, quote, into the record. They are already in the record. They have been provided to the board, they have been filed, and they are appropriately located in the public comment section, the exact same section of the quote record that they would be if they read it. There is no purpose in reading them into the record because they are already been provided to the board has read them, and they are entered into the record. So we have been confused, and I'm one of them, in saying, okay, well, what do we do when somebody says they need to be read into the record? So we asked for legal counsel. Legal counsel suggested exactly what they should be made part of the record, and they have been made part of the record, and they have been provided to the board. So from my perspective, if you want to read them all, that's fine, but there is no difference. They're not put into the minutes. We don't put in the letter into the minutes. It gets filed with public comment, and a summary gets put into the minutes. If what the legal counsel is suggesting is that we just receive these listed in whatever fashion you would, just like they were read, and they're filed appropriately, and that's what we've done. Now, if I'm confused on what it means to quote read them into the record, because not really just sure what that means, but they have been entered into the record, and reading them at this meeting does nothing more. They are already in the record.
I'm not sure what you mean by they have been entered into the record. We, at least some of us, have received those emails, but there's been an attempt here to block further emails, and we're gonna discuss that later. We have in the past read letters that have been received at this time, and just a minute, let me finish. Okay, and all of these people have asked, if we were not under restrictions of coronavirus restrictions, there's a good chance these people would be here. We probably wouldn't have room for them. And they would want to stand up and be heard. And because they can't come here, because we will not let them, the state will not let them come here, they have chosen this alternative route. It seems to me, because of those circumstances, it's important that what they have to say be heard, not just read into the record.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am just telling, I've been asked what we do with these letters. I've asked your legal counsel, the city attorney. The city attorney has told you what the appropriate thing to do with the letters are. Now, if the board wants to do something else, that's fine. The board can do something else, but we are not trying to, we are not trying to block their input. In fact, we're trying to encourage it to be simpler to them, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. For whatever reason, there is nothing else to be done with these. And quite frankly, you have already all received all of the emails here that have been provided. You, as the board, have received them all before this meeting. I'm not sure what purpose there is to read them again, but what we did is we do not know how to deal with something, and quite frankly, it's not been asked. It's not part of their document. There was a box on their input form letter that says, "Do you want these read into the minutes, into the record of the meeting?" They checked the box. So we are providing them into the record exactly what they said. If they didn't check the box, then it just went to you and we didn't do anything with it. All of these emails that we have gotten are all entered in, and it's exactly what Burns and McDonnell did, what our communication firm is doing with all other communications that we have. We're going to tabulate them. We're going to put it all together. We're going to put a report together for the board with all the comments, exactly what the Michigan Public Service Commission does with all their comments. We are not blocking anything. We are encouraging people to use the system that's in place to provide the input. We give it all to you, and then we maintain records of it. And at some point in time, we will summarize it. We will report on it. We will do everything else. There is no blocking of any information because it's not read into the minutes today. That does not mean that it was not received and responded to. Now, if you want to, I guess I don't know what you want to do. If you want to take up your board time reading these letters, then we've already spent probably more time than that. If you want to spend your time reading letters that you've previously received, that's your decision. I just asked for the opinion of legal counsel, which I was asked to do on what our requirements are for the public comment period.
I'll just make a couple of comments.
Sure.
I think the reading part in the public record was not just for the benefit of the people on the board, because obviously they get the copies of the notes that have been sent in or the letters that have been sent in. The value of it was that other people in the audience would have the benefit of knowing that someone down the street had made a comment, as well as perhaps one of the people that were listening or a part of our casting today. I actually was going to recommend, if we're going to read them, because there's quite a few, it's to take a long time, that we put it off to the end of the meeting and ask Renee to read them in the record, and would go from there as far as the board as a technical thing. I guess that's really all I want to say. I think it was a matter of the general public who would have been in the audience, if we could have an open meeting, they would hear, they would see the person. This way they get to hear the person, not to see the person. If we elect not to do that, because I think we probably are legally complying with the law as far as the record goes. What it doesn't do is offer someone's opinion to be heard by someone else in the Zoom program here.
If you've asked for a legal opinion, let's have it. Get it to us, because we're evidently paying for it. And it would be nice to know what our lawyer has to say about it. And the other thing, Dave, is I don't think I am misquoting when I say every one of these emails at the bottom said, I would like this read into the public record at the upcoming board meeting. That's very clear what the person writing it wanted.
That is not written by the person writing the letter, John. That's all I said.
They knew that that would be sent with their email. And so they
They
were
checked a
agreeing to
box,
that.
they checked a box at the end of the form to do that. Now, if that box wasn't there, I don't know what they would do. Some people don't check the box, some people check the box.
Mr. Chairman? Jerry,
Yes.
I'd like to say a few words.
Go ahead.
I had indicated earlier that, speaking to some of the people, that I had gone through the same thing when I was chairman of the board of the Ottawa County Commission. Without going into that history, I feel right now the board's best decision would be to continue to read them. I know that this is something that is not popular with the staff. And I understand it takes time, but we're a public organization. They cannot be here to be heard, which is probably what they would do if we had the ability to have them here. I feel strongly that our best option today is to continue to read them. And if we come up with a different solution or change our mind in the future, we can do it at any time. So I'll make a motion that we continue to read all the letters that have requested to be read at our meeting as we have in the past.
Second.
Any further discussion? Renee, please call the roll.
Is that okay, Jack? Can we change your motion to read that we would read them all at the end of the meeting before adjourning?
Yeah, I have no problem where you plug it in, so no problem.
Prove that, or I second that change.
Renee, would you call the roll? Please.
Crum,
Yes.
Kieft,
Yeah.
Nasser,
Yes.
Witherell,
Yes.
Smant,
Yes,
I would like to correct one thing though, Jack, is the staff is not taking a position one way or another. We will take a position later on the use of this submittal form, and that's going to be a different discussion item. But whether you read these into the agenda or on your meeting or not, it's your decision. We were asked to get legal counsel on what is required of you. If you guys want to do it, it's not popular or unpopular with staff. It's up to you. But we were asked to get a legal opinion, and we did.
I'm not objecting. I'm not objecting to the possibility or I am not objecting to the fact that you got a legal opinion. I merely stated my position at this time, but I suggest we move on.
Are we still in, this is Todd, are we still in public comment? Or did we get out of public comment?
We still are. Andrea, you have, yeah, go ahead and start.
Mr. Chair, we have not speaking at any time for 3 minutes. So that is entirely an inaccurate statement. We have not limited public comment in any way to 3 minutes.
One of the things that has been of interest to me through this long journey for the board and the staff is that in 6 months, there is a group of people who feel that they're qualified to talk about power. And I'm mystified by that, quite honestly. I've been here 16 years and I struggle with knowing even a fraction of what it's about. The idea that we are not willing to sit down and talk with you and your group is absolutely a fabrication. We have talked and talked. Your chairman decided that he didn't want to talk to us because he didn't like the messenger and he didn't like the message. Now, at some point, you all have to give thought to the incredible hours that your group has taken up of our staff, and we've done it because we want to appear like we're not doing anything like you suggest that we are. Let me just let's just put one thing in perspective. Your group has criticized us for hiring a public relations firm to tell our story. Our staff doesn't have time to sit down and respond to the people that have questioned them about things more than 3 times. The cost of that public relation firm equates out to the price of a half a pack of cigarettes or a Big Mac. Now, folks, I want to tell you something. That's peanuts to take the pressure off our staff and to get the information that needs to be put out, not the information that the Grand Haven Energy Group continues to misrepresent. Okay.
Patty, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kent Blom. I'm Patty Nelson's husband. I live at 1820 Pine Court in Grand Haven, so I'm a customer of the BLP. After the last board meeting, board member Witherall gave his home phone number and requested people call him if they had an opinion. So I did, and I appreciate, Mr. Witherall, that you called me back. He told me that two of the main reasons the GHBLP is pursuing a power plant on Harbor Island is because City Council asked them to, and because of the snowmelt system. Of course, at the time that City Council asked the BLP to build a plant, it was with the expectation of a 36 megawatt plant, which turned out to be too expensive, so it was downsized. A lot of other things have changed as well. We have a new administration in Washington that has a different vision about power generation than the prior one. There will be much more emphasis on addressing climate change through the development of sustainable energy and ways to store it, such as improvements with battery storage. So I agree with the people who are requesting that we continue to buy off the grid and see what happens over the next few years. The current plan does not seem like a good investment economically or environmentally. I appreciate you taking my comments. Thank you very much, board.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. All right. One of the things that should be surfacing in a lot of people's minds the last couple of days or the last 6 months is California, who took a direction that some are suggesting, or the state of Texas, who are freezing to death. There is so much more to this issue than is being talked about. And unfortunately, there is a consideration. I got a call the other night from probably the leading expert in solar in the Grand Haven area. He was leaving for a vacation and wanted to talk to me before he left. He said to me that in his opinion, and solar is his business, that we are a long way before storage will be resolved. By a long way, does he mean 12 months, 15 months, 25 years? I have no idea. That is not our job here. Our job here as the Board of Light and Power is to supply power to our community and the surrounding communities efficiently and affordably. And this, every time that we get a letter or you want to talk about what I received in the way of discussions from people. First of all, what I said at the board meeting was misrepresented in one of the people's response. It said that I was telling people that I did not feel like anybody cared about what went on in Harbor Island. That is not what I said. That I will tell you. What I did say was I did not think that there would be 25 people supporting one of our board members about the path that he has been on. Well, let me tell you what I got. The first day I got 12 phone calls. 11 of them didn't mention anybody's names. They didn't mention the word pause. They simply asked what was going on, and I told them. Didn't know any of them. It wasn't my friends calling the first day. The last phone call that I got was a lady that finally said to me, "I'm so mad at you, I can't talk," and she hung up. Second day, I got 3 phone calls. Now, there were discussions on those phone calls about the difficulty in getting through to me. I have a Panasonic system in my house. My phone, when I'm on it, does not ring busy. It rings, and it'll ring and ring and ring. So if you
Point of order, sir.
yes,
We're in public comment.
I'm
Let's
making a
move
public
on-
comment.
Let's move on. No, it is not appropriate for us to
I
respond.
appreciate that.
To
Thank you.
respond to everybody that wants to comment. Let's move on.
Well, we respond to you on a regular basis.
I'm a board member. That's different.
Thank you. So am I. All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go into the general manager's report. Purchase orders, you have 2 purchase orders on your agenda. The information was in the general manager's report on the skid steer and the direction. We're recommending approval.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Are you leading this meeting or not? We've already moved and seconded.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Kieft, Nasser,
Yes.
Witherell. Smant,
Yes,
Okay, we have with us today Tim Blodgett. The board met with Tim on the 20th of last month. And then we've met twice. We met with Tim as staff after that, and he is, and then another time via virtual meeting. So he is here to give you an update on what we've done since the last time you've met. So, and he's got a slide presentation here for you.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, board, for having me. And as board, as you may recall, last time we were together, we went through and laid out the plan and the timeline of the updating the board, seeking the board's approval to move to the next step. As you may recall, we reviewed a lot in our last meeting. And we talked about the mission, we talked about values. Within that, there was a decision at that point in time, and the board concurred to take the values deeper and talk about behavior sets around those values. So we're going to update you on those today. And then also staff did a lot of work in coming back to strategic areas of focus and the strategic objective, the outcomes for those. And as you may recall, I had talked about it's much more efficient to get the board's buy-in and approval of those strategic areas of focus, similar to the process we went through 5 years ago, prior to moving into the goal setting, just to ensure that staff and board are still in lockstep moving forward. So that's the intent of today's meeting, is to provide the update, get any feedback from the board, and then staff then between now and the next time we gather, next board meeting, will come back with goals as well for the board to react to. So if I could, the next slide, just as a reminder, the process itself, these are the 8 steps, and we reviewed these last time. And again, want to get up through step 6 today, these desired ends or strategic objectives, using your terminology. And so that's what we're going to work through up till, and I won't consume much of the board's time here unless there's questions from the board on these strategic initiatives. We had no changes to the existing mission statement, which is common not to have changes unless there's been significant changes or something to drive that. And I don't believe that the board had changes to this last time we met, but I do want to pause just to make sure that, just to again remind the board that we've made no changes to the existing plan's mission statement. Next slide. And this is where we decided, you may recall in the last meeting, that we would like to do a deeper dive. The board agreed with that, to not only state what the core value is and a general statement of what that means to BLP, but also then what are the behavior sets around that. So we're going to give, within this, staff's done a lot of good work in coming up with what these behavior sets are And so we'll go through those, and plus you're going to see that we consolidated a little bit the core values as well. So, and what we talk about here, and I wanted to include the board members in this because you're going to see, you know, we included the board members as part of the organization, as part of the team, which it should be in regards to the core values, demonstrating those, and then emulating the behavior sets. So next slide, please. So what you're seeing here is a side-by-side of what was in your previous plan. You had the 6 core values on the left-hand side there previous. What you see there on the right is what staff is proposing, and narrowed them down to 4 core values. And then within that, then demonstrating that behavior statement, or that behavior set, as we like to refer to. So you'll see here the first one, work cooperatively as a team. And well, what does that mean? So these 4 behavior sets underneath are intended then to lay out what that means. So prioritize wellness, education, and training, maintain a safe and secure workplace, treat our team members fairly, equitably, and with mutual respect, value the contributions of everyone on the team. So again, the core value is work cooperatively as a team. That did not change from prior, but now we did a deeper dive and we listed out some behavior sets on what that means. And I'll go through these if it's okay with the board, and then we can come back and have any discussion that you may have. But so the second one there is continuously improve our performance. Underneath that, the behavior set is maintain modern and reliable infrastructure. Consider the environmental impacts on what we do. Implement best and sustainable practices, and utilize technology cost effectively. Again, same core value that you had before, but now you just got behavior sets underneath. The third one, serve with integrity. Again, the same core value as the previous plan, but 3 behavior sets underneath that. Be accountable for our actions, serve openly and honestly, treat our community fairly, equitably, and respectfully. So those are the 3 underneath that. Then the last one, provide value to the community. That's a newer one that we didn't have last time, that you didn't have last time. And the behavior sets underneath that are improve the community we serve, remain a trusted energy partner, and engage and understand our customers. So what you see there is we took the 6 that you had before and really wrapped our, I say raised those up to 4, 3 the same, and then added 1. But then you'll see that everything that was in there from the previous side is either still there as a core value or as a behavior set underneath one of the core values with some additions to that. So I'll pause right there and get the board's reaction. Any questions, comments, any changes the board would like to discuss here? And I want to be respectful of the board's time. So if these all look good and the board's fine with that, just tell me to move on and I'll get on with the slides here.
Okay.
Or staff, if you have anything.
Staff. Staff is fine.
Okay. So the second area then that we talked about, and this is our step 5 in the process, and I will state too that staff is working on, in parallel with everything that we've done, continuing to work the SWOT, continuing to work the customer needs area, the target markets, the customer segments, and the customer needs area. So those 2 steps have not been skipped. Those are in process along with the steps that are being presented today. So the 5th step then is, when you narrow all that down, when you bring into everything, from the standpoint of the customer, the SWOT, the values, the mission, and you bring all that down, we want to then consolidate that into strategic areas of focus. Last time we had 6 strategic areas of focus. You're going to see we have 6 this time as well. But these are for the next 5 years. These are the buckets, or these are the initiatives or the areas that are very strategic to BLP, where the spotlight needs to be and where goal development will occur to be able to measure the progress in these strategic areas over the next 5 years. So, and then we'll also then we also add then an outcome statement. Your terminology, you call that a strategic objective. So it's laying out what the objective of this strategic initiative is. So you're going to see the strategic initiatives, and then you're going to see these strategic objectives that further describe that initiative. So if we can move to the next slide. So here's previously what you had. This was in the last plan. And you had the 6 areas. I will not read through these. You're very familiar with these on the board, but we made, these are just from the previous. The strategic area focus is what's bolded there, the 6 areas. And then the strategic objective is the definition describing that area of focus. So this is what we had previously, or you had previously. And so if we move on then to the next slide, these are the updates that staff's recommending. You're going to see a lot of the same as far as the strategic area of focus. There have been updates to the strategic objective, and there's been a few updates to the strategic areas of focus. But the first one, financial management, GHBLP will operate in a manner that manages financial resources to provide rate stability, customer value, and appropriately address risks. That's the financial management strategic area of focus. Next, customer and community engagement. GHBLP will engage its customers and the community to gain an understanding of their values and utility expectations. So that's the second area. Third area, transmission and distribution. GHBLP will operate a reliable, modern system to provide future capacity and support a diverse power supply portfolio. So that's the third one. The fourth one, power supply. GHBLP will maintain a sustainable, economical, and diversified power supply portfolio consistent with proven energy risk management practices. The fifth one, human resources. GHBLP will attract and retain a qualified, effective, and professional team. And then the last but not least, business practices and technologies. GHBLP will adhere to best practices and utilize technologies that sustain efficient and effective operations. So that's what staff is proposing as far as the strategic areas of focus, and then the description, the outcome, the end statement, the strategic objective, the statement then that follows. So I'll just pause there and see if the board has what the board thinks of this, because as I've described previously, it's important for the board to buy off on these or make changes to these before we move forward with goal setting.
Tim?
Yes, sir.
You're here.
Yes.
I'd like to just make a comment about the customer and community engagement section.
Okay.
We are involved currently in a situation where our public would like to have more of a say in what we're doing. And I don't know how that could be worded here, but it seems to me that it's an important enough thing that it would need to be addressed in the strategic objectives. We have a lot of public comment about a plan, and I think fairly say that the public, they're not saying that the BLP is not informing them of the plan. I think what they're saying is that they want to be able to share informing the plan. Now, how that could be worded, I don't know. I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth.
Okay. Thank you, John. And a question I would have back to you is, when you think about the strategic area of focus, it's the overarching strategic initiative. So it's going to tend to be broader. And really, a strategic area of focus itself isn't that measurable. Typically, your goals are where you'll have your metrics and your measurements within that. My question to you is, do you have a suggested change in wording to the strategic initiative? And or do you think that your comment there could be captured within a goal?
I'm not sure. When I read this, you could interpret this to mean, well, we're going to inform them of what we're doing, but we're not really going to ask for their participation. So somehow, adding wording that would allow the community to participate, especially in planning that is involved in the next 30 years, would be helpful.
Okay. I'd like to, maybe toss that over to staff. Staff, thoughts on that recommended change from John or enhancement, I should say?
I guess I think that's what it says, but I don't know what gain and understanding of the value of their values and utility expectations. Does that not say exactly that we want to hear from the public and understand what they value and what they expect?
That doesn't mean we would accept it. Dave, I have participated for many years in all kinds of planning. And I will tell you, sitting down and sharing ideas and having an open mind as to the other side, and I don't want to say other side, what the other person or the other group has to say, and looking for compromises is a little bit different than just understanding their values and expectations.
I have a comment. I'm wondering if item 6 under B, which is update on customer engagement and the BLP community outreach, would be part of our answer to John's question, because you're going to tell us what you've been doing, who you've been talking to. So I think part of that presentation would also be part of what John is asking.
I'm looking forward to that presentation.
Yeah, and I guess my only question or comment would be, I know that you're, and very much in the midst of some major decisions for the utility going forward in your power supply. I understand that, or I'm not an expert on it, but I understand based on the last meeting and just the conversation so far in this meeting. And, I would ask you to think too holistically beyond just that. And I'm not dismissing that or downplaying that. That's a very important decision that you're going to be making within that. But, your customer engagement, community engagement, understanding their needs goes beyond just the power supply side, obviously. And so, I would ask that the board think about this from an all-encompassing, the engagement with the customer itself. I know it's very easy and natural to get focused on the topic at hand, but keep in mind there's other things outside of that. So I'm not downplaying anything that's been said or anything. I guess maybe just asking if there's any wordsmithing or any suggestions in how to make sure that the intent of this is captured correctly, that we can move forward with an agreement on what that strategic objective statement is, not just probably in the next 5 years, but ongoing and thereafter as well.
I think we can address this. We'll try to talk about it at our next meeting, and we'll try to put something in that would satisfy the board's approval.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, Dave, that staff understands what board is asking for, just so you don't bring something back next meeting and, we're still missing the mark, I guess. So maybe you could take it offline and maybe you can wordsmith it with the board or something, but just unless we slow the process down, because we're going to be developing goals between now and the next meeting also. That'd be my only comment as a facilitator.
I think we understand what was said, and we'll try to deal with it either in the goals or in a revision of the objective.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Thank you, John, for that. Thank you, Jack. Others, is there any other of these that need to be addressed, or are we good now as far as staff to take this now with that enhancement that we just discussed there under the customer and community engagement and start working on goals?
Unsatisfied.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Okay, I can't read the room, so I'm going to move on unless somebody stops me. So I want to be respectful of your time today here. So on the next steps, you can see what we were looking for today, getting your reaction to the behavior sets and the values, the strategic areas of focus, strategic objectives. I think we've got that with that tweak. It sounds like that we can move forward. So again, as I mentioned, staff's going to continue working the customer market segments and needs area, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then the goals, which will be where the metrics are for at a high level, of course, the goals then for this plan, and then bring that back on March 18th, and then get reactions to that and the current plan path that we're on right now, unless the board advises differently, then is to bring back the final plan on the 22nd after we've received the input on the 18th to bring back that final plan for you to react to, and if you like it, to approve it. So Dave, I'll turn it back to you if you have any other comments on that. But that completes what I had today, just from the update standpoint to the board.
Thanks, Tim. I just encourage the board, to all review the slide deck. It is important part of our process to get your input, and I would encourage you all to spend a little time reviewing the changes that were made in the value section. In the changes in the strategic objectives. Some of them are subtle, some of them are more significant. But you do have what we have today in our strategic plan and what modifications we made over the last month. Encourage you to look at that more specifically. And if you do have any comments, we're off the mark somewhere, please feel free to, outside of this meeting, after the meeting, before the next time. I think we're going to meet 2 times again with Tim over the next month, and we're going to continue to move forward. So with the exception of John's comments, I haven't heard anything else. So I would appreciate any other input that you have. And if you haven't looked at it, this at the end of the day, this is your plan. So, staff is trying to put things before you, drafting it. But at the end of the day, if you don't buy into it, then you got to tell us before we get 3 months down the road, and we say, well, just we don't like it. So it would be helpful to stay engaged in the process. We're going to update you every meeting in March, and then in April you'll see the final plan. So you'll have 2 more times to look at this, but the earlier the better. So if there's something that you want to see addressed specifically, now's the time.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's move on. Eric, is Eric going to speak?
I think I can handle. Eric's online as well, but you do have in your packet, you do have a recommendation memorandum letter from Eric regarding approval of special counsel. If you remember this process, the charter does require that if we engage special counsel, that approval of council comes before the board as a specific action, and then it goes before the city council, and the city council also approves that. Now, we have worked with Arthur Siegel over the last several months as an advisor. He was helping us through this process of submitting our CCR work, and he's helped us with that process. But we're actually asking now that as we're getting more into this, that we would actually engage him as special counsel of the city in this regard. And you can read Eric's email there and recommendation, as it is. But we do want to also have Arthur come in the next month or so. And he's been working with the city attorney, Ron Bolchi, as well, to come in and have a joint closed session of the board and city council to specifically talk about the legal issues associated with the cleanup efforts on Harbor Island. So this is a predicate to that that meeting being held, but I think it is a requirement that both the board and the council approve specifically council in this regard.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you. Discussion? Discussion?
I'm wondering why this is necessary. I have in front of me a letter from Eagle dated January 27th, which lists 10 reasons why station is denied. Are we hiring this lawyer to negotiate these points or what?
Yes, and I think that is entirely appropriate to ask him directly what his recommendations are, and that's why we would have a meeting with the board and your council associated with what the appropriate responses are to those types of letters. Again, Mr. Siegel is actually one of the ones that was involved in writing the legislation that promulgated the rules that we're dealing with. He's an expert on them. He knows what the rules require and what they don't require. It is correct that Eagle has asked us for various information. We've responded to various information. You pick out one letter, we probably have 13 or so letters that are all part of the public record that we have shared publicly with the Tribune and others. I think it's entirely appropriate that the board and the council fully become abreast of their legal responsibilities in this regard. And I think it is entirely appropriate for you to have counsel. So if you ask why you need counsel, it's for that reason. You're getting letters like this and others, significant others, associated with compliance issues associated with the cleanup of Harbor Island. And that's why you need legal counsel. And actually, your city attorney is suggesting that, yes, it is entirely appropriate for you to have special legal counsel. At the end of the day, I think what will likely happen is there will be a negotiated consent order, which is common in these regards, that Eagle and EPA and their attorneys and our attorneys will be working on a consent order to resolve all of these outstanding issues. And it would be entirely, it would be to not have special legal counsel that is abreast of these rules and understanding the rules. To not have it would be rather not recommended for me. So I think it is recommended that we do have legal counsel. Our recommendation is that you, as soon as possible, get together with the board and council and council in this regard. And quite frankly, I am the quote legal appointed responsible individual on your behalf that has to sign all this stuff and receive all those letters. I think it's in your best interest to get legal counsel. So we've investigated as staff who we thought would be the appropriate person to represent the city, to represent your interests. And we think Arthur would be, and that's the recommendation from Eric as well. He's the one that's been specifically involved in most of this. But I think before you start making determinations on whether the city did something right, wrong, or otherwise, I think you should have legal counsel there, and you should be advised by them. So,
Dave? I will take issue with you on whether or not all of these letters have been made public. I know I didn't receive this letter through your office or through the BLP. And so I question whether it has been made public or not. That's just one point. What concerns me is the larger picture here. We hired Golder supposedly as a firm that could walk us through this process. But we've got all kinds of things in this letter that according to them, they're claiming haven't been done. I don't understand at this point how we could be missing so many things. If we're, just a minute. The other issue that I have is, do we have a budget for this? And if so, what is it?
Again, John, you're taking one letter out of a series of letters back and forth between Golder and the EPA and Eagle. Eagle said, we need this. Golder responds and says, we think we have given you what you needed. It goes back and forth and back and forth. All of those letters have been reviewed by Golder,
Is this the
by
latest?
council,
Is
by
this the
Eric.
latest?
This is really not the appropriate time to talk about one letter in that whole
Is
thing.
this the latest letter received from Eagle?
What's that?
Is this the latest letter received from Eagle? January 27th?
No,
Well, there are others we haven't seen either.
John, there are, if you want to get copies of every single piece of correspondence that I get, then that all of the information, and when I say we receive the letters and they're available to the public, those letters have been FOIA'd by the Tribune. And all of the information that we have, all of the files, everything else, what Andrew was talking about as well, was that all of the information that we have is all part of the quote public record, and it's all available. We have thousands of pages of reports, letters, correspondences, and you have chosen one to review today. We had a meeting of the board, I believe a month and a half ago, that where Golder came in, told you, answered your questions. That was a summary. We've also now received an annual update that we've posted on our website. There is thousands of pages of information. And when you request the information, we are more than open, honest. There's no hiding of information, but there are a lot of information that's out there. And this is a very complex situation that I recommend that you have legal counsel for. Now, our recommendation is to move forward with legal counsel. Your city attorney's recommendation is that you have legal counsel. I think we need to move forward with legal counsel. Is there anyone else that's concerned with having legal counsel on the board except John?
No, I don't have a problem with getting legal counsel. I just, when I read this, it left me a little cold. I thought Golder was handling all this for us. And obviously, some things have fallen off the table here. And because when you start talking about taking on a counsel, and you're going to get into negotiations, that's because things are not satisfied. Certain requirements are not satisfied. And I thought this was being done and handled. I mean, this has been the pitch to the board that Golder has got this capability to resolve these issues. But now it's boiling down to a legal head-on-head compromise here.
Actually, Larry, I think you're getting yourself into every single month for the last 12 months, you have approved a bill on the consent agenda for Jaffe, Huber, Weiss. That is Arthur Siegel.
I know we've had him on.
So he has been on council.
not the
He
point.
has been representing you, talking in discussions. This is not the first time that we've had this. What we're doing is in this process, we are getting to the point where this person, your council, has asked to talk directly to the board and council, exactly what you're requesting. And what they need to do that is you have to approve of them of council. So if you want to switch councils, okay, let's switch councils. But
That isn't my question.
at this point in time, what I envisioned is a relatively, routine approval of council that you have been using as an advisor for some time to actually be approved as legal counsel.
Yeah, I understand all that, but
So-
when you use the word routine, this doesn't sound like a routine situation.
I don't think, if you've got the opinion from the last time that Golder was here, that everything is going smoothly and that we don't have any differences of opinion with the understanding of how certain rules are interpreted, we have been saying that over and over again in every single discussion that we've had with you. We have differences of opinion between Golder, between our legal counsel, the EPA and Eagle have not in certain areas agreed on certain items. So we are dealing with a very complex site that does not fall very easily into the confines of the rules that we are trying.
I understand that.
So we are as straightforwardly and upfront with everybody as possible. We have not, like I said, we've had 4 or 5 presentations of Golder and reports being posted. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're right. We have spent a lot of money. If you ask for a budget, we have about $8 million set aside for cleanup efforts in the redevelopment of Harbor Island. That $8 million, it may or may not be enough given what you may or may not have told that you have to do. So yes, there's a lot of effort in this regard. We are trying as hard as we possibly can to bring the city into compliance, but I don't think the board or the city council fully understands the legal situation that they're in, and you need advice of counsel.
I would agree
Don't, by
with
the
Bill.
way, don't, Dave, don't misquote me. I did not say I didn't want legal counsel. I was asking questions about why we got to this point. I didn't say that I didn't think this was a good idea.
Okay.
If we need legal counsel to protect us, of course. But the fact is we're not getting much, and contrary to what you say, we're not getting much information on where we are. And I'm not asking for thousands of pages of letters, but when I see a letter that says there's 10 points here where we haven't been in conformance, and some of them are things that are pretty straightforward, I get concerned.
All right, let's let Eric address the board.
So, couple things. One, I wouldn't consider a disagreement over certain items that were not in compliance. So here's the issue that you run into. Like, say, if you're looking at the January 27th letter, I believe that was on the Unit 3 closure. So here's the issue, and we did report this to the board when we ran into it. It was either in September or October. When we tried to remove the spillway, or actually we did end up removing it, we uncovered ash underneath it. And I told you guys when we did that, we went through and dug through the boxes up on the 7th floor, and we were fortunate enough to find a construction report buried in one of them that documented that the clay impoundments were built on a field of ash. Now, the rule requires you to remove the clay. Now, that sounds fine, but when you remove the clay, you're going to uncover a field of ash under record high water tables. Right now, the water table is above the clay impoundment. Golder made the recommendation, and I agree with them, don't remove the clay right now. Try to get the clay as clean as you can to leave it in as a protective barrier until we can figure out how best to move forward. But the rule doesn't allow that. The rule says pull out the clay. But the rule also doesn't take into account that you're sitting on a field of ash than what used to be a channel of the Grand River. So there are certain complexities just with the site that's going to make it difficult for you to comply with. We made that very clear, and we made it clear to the public. And I think Dave's right. We're going to end up in some kind of consent order, and we're going to need some kind of direction on the board from the board and the council as to which direction do you want us to go. They'll make the recommendation, but since you can't clean this site up from the former city dump in, this island that's been made of ash over 20 years, you're going to have to make decisions. And Eagle has their attorneys, and they're going to be writing up their consent order or the conditions they want to see. This is so that you have legal counsel when they're drafting those documents to negotiate back and forth with Eagle. But you're not going to get out of this, and you're not going to fight Eagle on it either. What's in the ground is what's in the ground. We're not going to change that. We got to figure out how we're going to get to an agreement on how we manage the site going forward.
I would like to address, John, just a statement here, I guess, is there is this, and it will come out several times over the next several items on the agenda. I do not think I have spent in 31 years of operating an electric utility, that I have spent any more time doing my job over the last year than supplying information to the public. Literally, I told my staff today, I don't think I've accomplished anything in the last 2 months as far as evaluation of doing my job. All of my time, all of it, has been spent communicating with the public. Now, this idea that staff is somehow not communicating with the public, it's not listening to the public, it is not taking their comments, answering their questions, asking for alternatives. That is all I've been doing. It's all I've been doing. Now, I understand that that's what you want me to do, but what continues, we've just put together a new spot here. We've updated the list. This is what we've done for the last 3 years, documented. The idea that that staff is somehow blocking communication is not understanding people. When we get a FOIA request, we have to this is the way it goes. We look at how much information is being requested. We estimate what the time is associated with collecting all that information, and we bill the recipient half of the estimated time. That's how a FOIA request works. We are not trying to block it. We're not trying to not provide information. We are, and I think Renee and Rob and Eric and Jerry have all spent hours and hours and hours and hours of a time and getting out information and trying to get it right. What you will find is that we are doubling and tripling the amount of time that we're spending doing this, because we get the information out, we pass the information out. Coming behind us is a group of people that are saying, well, what they just provided is wrong. So then these people come back and say, wait a minute, this is what they're telling us, this is what you're telling us. And then we go back and forth, and we have literally spent hours and hours and hours of information communicating with the public. Now, the suggestion that we are not doing it, we are not communicating with the public, we are not listening to them, we are not asking for their input, is not supported by the record. I can give you my timesheets. I can talk about how much time. I can show you all the letters. If you want to see letters, if you want to see communications, if you want to see other things that we have done. I just spent a day and a half responding to the chamber questions that they had, that they have submitted and asked for my input. We are providing all of the input. So the suggestion, the same thing here, all of these information, all this stuff, Eric has worked a ton of information on this stuff. We have given you presentations on it. If you want more information, and the reason why you're saying, why do this now, is because Eric and I want to be more transparent. We want the attorney to come and talk directly to you so that you understand legally what we understand. Counsel should be involved. You should be involved. And quite frankly, after that meeting, I think the public should be fully made aware of everything that's being there. I am the one that's pushing to get it made public and to get some of this stuff known, because you know why? My name is on all of that stuff. I am not trying to hide anything. I am not trying to prevent anybody from getting the information. Quite the opposite. I want everybody, including you and everyone on the board, to see all of the stuff that I have seen, so that, and get counsel's opinion, so that you can stand there right next to me and right next to Eric and right next to Golder in understanding what our requirements are. And if you want to change what Golder is doing or want to change what we're submitting, that's your entitlement. But until you get fully briefed on all of that stuff, I'm not exactly sure what you want me to send you and what you don't want me to send. But I think, again, this is a long discussion about accepting a legal counsel, but our recommendation is to get this stuff out in the public. And the first thing that we're going to ask you to do is probably to write letters to your legislature, because they're going to have to be involved too. We are going to have solicit support of our legislators as well, because some of this stuff is going to be decision making. It's not rule following. We're going to have to get to the decision makers at EPA and at Eagle to address this stuff.
Well, your suggestion, we're sort of at a critical point.
Yes.
Okay. For my part, and I think some part of John, I think that's all we were asking. Are we at a critical situation here that we are taking this step forward
Yes.
to get to where we have to go, whatever that means?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
I call the question.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Kieft,
Yes.
Nasser,
Yes.
Witherell,
Yes.
Smant,
Yes,
The next item on the agenda is I think this, I'm going to actually turn this part. I think Greg Holcomb is here. Jerry, you're here. Todd's here. I think you all have in your packet of information what was provided to you in December regarding the diesel plant sale items, and then several reports from oh, all right. All right. Let's do we want to go to that item first, Chair? Because Greg's here. We can go to that item and then come back.
I would prefer to go to Greg.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just saw Greg walked in, so I think maybe it's best to switch those two items around on the agenda. Let's put up there just the packet, just get to the packet of information that Greg,
Hello?
for those on the call, we've had one board member step out of the room for a minute, so we're waiting till he comes back in. So that's why the pause in activity here. Jack, I think we're getting a lot of static from your moving papers around or something.
That's what I'm doing. Okay.
Okay,
I won't do it anymore.
you have in section 5B4 item, a series of six different items that we produced over the last several months, leading up to hopefully the sale and redevelopment of the diesel plant property. The top item is the recommendation that we prepared, actually, board member Witherall and Crum prepared. I helped them draft the document, which is December 14, which recommends the capstone proposal be the one that is considered and possibly approved by the board, which would then be submitted to city council for its hopeful approval. Along with that was a resolution that would provide and move our recommendation forward. That's also part of this packet. I think it's the third or fourth item, the fourth item. In the discussion on December 17, you decided, because city council members had been talking about the idea of wanting some feedback and so forth, to hold on your recommendation to give city council a chance to gather feedback and input from the community. And so in their meeting on December 7, I believe, they took formal action to try to solicit feedback. They went ahead with a survey, which was submitted to the community via the water bills and also online, that people could respond to, both residents and non-residents. That feedback came back to the city over the next 6 weeks. They posted the information from that survey on January 28th, and they used basically, it was about a 40-page document with nearly 800 responses to give them information for their discussion on February 1. The document in our packet, the fifth document, is a review of that survey. I won't go through that unless you would like me to. But there's a lot of information that came from that. A few high-level takeaways are an interest in saving the diesel plant, in not building more condominiums in the community. Just, it was a sort of gut level response. No more condos. A number of other comments. The upshot of all this was there was a strong interest in the proposals that saved about 2/3 of the responses. Again, I have to emphasize this is a sort of unscientific survey, but it is a survey that the city did, and they generated quite a few responses, and that was the basis upon their discussion. At the conclusion of the city council discussion, they decided not to take any action, that they wanted to hear from the board at this meeting what your true recommendation is going forward, before they respond and react to anything in the survey or otherwise. So over the last, I'll say, week, I've been in discussions with Jerry and board member Crum, talking about the survey, talking about our own deliberations over the last 3 months, really, and came up with the recommendation, which is the last 2.5 pages of this packet that we put together. So on page 13 or 14, recommendations submitted by Mr. Witherall and Crum that I put together principally with Dave's help. It's dated February 12. It was put in your packet Monday, and that's what is before you here. And I'll summarize it at a high level. We heard the conversations. We understand the sentiment towards saving the building, saving the diesel plant. We resonate and sympathize in a certain sense with that. But the bottom line is our recommendation from December 14 for Capstone seems to still win the day in terms of the conversations that we've had. It's among other reasons, it's the bid amount, the $1.525 million for the property, essentially as is. They will buy it, they will take care of the demolition, they'll build new buildings, market them, sell them, add to the tax base, et cetera. In addition, it's the lowest, and this is again in the very first document, it's the lowest risk in terms of the possibility of actually doing the project successfully, completing it on time, within their budget, et cetera. It also, in terms of a business model, it's not a restaurant you have to operate correctly. It's not an activity center. It's not apartments. It's condos that they're going to build and sell. It's a from a business perspective of all the things we heard, it's the least risky. So it's the chance to be most successful. The other thing we pointed out is that it's per se not competing with other ongoing businesses. You're not competing with other existing restaurants. You're not competing with a community center as an entertainment or activity center, an event center. You are competing with other condominiums theoretically, including the Sandpiper and others around, but as a new condominium enterprise, they have to compete like any other new enterprise would. We also pointed out that a second. The potential negative effects, neighborhood and community effects of the other proposals, I won't go into detail, but in terms of parking requirements, parking congestion, traffic congestion, noise generation, essentially the other three proposals compared to the Capstone condominiums, all three of those have a variety of greater or lesser extent of generating those kinds of externalities to adjacent properties, to the public streets and parking network, theoretically to Mulligan's Hollow, to other enterprises. But those kinds of negative effects would not get attached to the Capstone project. We also acknowledged again in this recommendation the historic and architectural qualities of the other proposals, trying to save the building, et cetera. Capstone, as you might recall, they're going to take the building out, but they're also using the design, architectural, and character of the diesel plant. The Palladian windows, the basic scale is almost identical to the height and elevations and so forth. They're actually going to save some of the brick and lintels, the limestone details on the building, and integrate them into the new buildings. They're also proposed to make a $35,000 donation to the Tri-Cities Museum to create an exhibit which includes the diesel plant and the BLP operations in the community. So although they're not saving the building, we're not saying that, but to the extent they're trying to give credit and honor the legacy of the building and the BLP, I think they went kind of above and beyond what you might expect otherwise. At any rate, that gets us back to the recommendation that the subcommittee is submitting for your consideration. Okay, the recommendation that Capstone still is the outstanding proposal and would offer the 1.525 bid as is. I guess the other piece, Dave, do you want me to mention the discussion about the use of proceeds? We mentioned it in the original December 14. The 1.525 million has been discussed with various people about what happens to those dollars. And there's been a pretty solid proposal on the table that it would be logical for the dollars to be used for purchasing and paying for the snowmelt heat source project that's underway, the boiler program that's underway to replace the Sims connections, which is around numbers $1 million project. And beyond that, the undergrounding of wires, especially the Harbor Drive undergrounding wires that the city and BLP have been discussing and DDA has been discussing, that would be really advantageous for a variety of reasons, reliability as well as just long-term security for those critical interconnecting wires. So the ability to kind of kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone, one capstone project, literally, it all kind of puts together a package, a relatively low risk package, high benefit package. Yes, you lose the building. We understand that. We're sympathetic to that. But the opportunity to have a clean slate for a new project that would add new residential units to the community and add to the tax base and not cause other issues to the neighbors and neighborhood and community led us to this recommendation.
Greg, the resolution that was in the packet, the whereases down at the end, it says, in accordance with the terms of the proposal presented by it to the BLP, a copy of which is attached. Is there some reason why you haven't shown the rest of the board the actual proposal from Capstone?
I can address that.
Just a minute, because, for instance, I, for one, would like to know what is the timeline? Are they planning on building a few and selling them and then building a few more and so forth? Questions like that would be appropriate for us to know the answers to. Dave?
The proposal was provided in December with that recommendation to attach it.
All the proposals, all 4 of them? In detail?
All 4 proposals were presented to you in September, I believe it was, when they were received, all 4 proposals. But your point's well taken, is none of the proposals have schedules attached to them. They weren't, that was not part of their proposal. Right. So if you remember, the process that we were suggesting is that there was enough information there to select the proposal. I mean, and obviously, there would then be some negotiations with that party before you actually signed a transaction, because the transaction, the proposal was not in such a fashion that you could just say, okay, sign, there it is.
I don't remember receiving the actual proposal.
You did.
Oh, yeah.
You did. So again, I
When
think.
was this? When?
December 30, I believe.
They were in our packet?
Double check.
If you remember back, we received them. Greg came and reviewed all of the proposals
they were
with us
reviewed,
on a summary basis.
but did we
In that
actually get them?
packet, you actually received the proposals. And then in December, we forwarded to you again with it, like it says attached, the proposal. When we got it out this time, again, we did not include the proposal. If you would.
I know, and that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, but the proposal was provided originally in December.
When?
Attached in December that was going to be original. That half of that packet that you have today is the exact same packet that you got in December, and we delayed action on it.
I'm talking about the actual proposal.
That was attached to the December attachment.
All right, other question. through all this, has any professional appraisal been done of the building and the property by one or more people that are in that business? It hasn't?
Not that I'm aware of.
Seems like that would be something we'd want to do, to know what it
Uh,
really is worth.
Well, I mean, oftentimes you can do an appraisal.
I mean, if I was gonna sell my house, I would want to know what it's worth.
Right, and oftentimes an appraiser comes in when you've entered into the buy sell.
If I can get the loan, yeah.
Right, to get the loan, so to verify the value is there. So these developers might have had an informal or official appraisal. I'm not aware of that, but they could well have done that themselves. I think what this suggests, though, if the site today were clean, if the building were gone, if the environmental issues were addressed and cleaned up, what would the value be? I think that is kind of an underlying question that is before us. The 1.525 from Capstone, I mean, suggests that clean value site ready to be developed is round numbers $2 million.
Should be easy to confirm that with somebody who's in the business, right?
Well,
That amount
potentially-
of property down
potentially,
there?
I'm using the bid price plus the value of the cost of
Okay.
demolition and cleaning it up, which has to be in the round numbers $500,000, because I've heard that bantied about in all these discussions I've had with the developers. So the clean site is sort of 2 million. So that if you had spent $500,000 to clean it up, that's what you could legitimately expect, is what I'm trying to get to.
Get what the market will bear.
Roughly.
What, the other thing that bothered me a little bit about your write-up was you seem to downplay the idea that taking the building down was pretty straightforward. But oftentimes when they tear old buildings down, they discover things that they didn't know about,
Absolutely.
which really raised the cost of tearing it down.
Absolutely. So there's two things. What I meant by that is it's easier to take a building out, clean up the environmental issues than it is to selectively remove equipment and the floor and the foundations in that building carefully while you're trying to keep the building up. To put heavy equipment in that building to remove and excavate the foundations under the turbines, the engines, is very delicate, tricky work.
Of course, it'd be better foundation than for most buildings, since what was going to be laid on.
Yeah, I mean, it cuts both ways. The foundations under those engines are
Yeah.
incredibly serious.
Yeah.
Which means they're really tricky to get out carefully.
If you want to take them out, yeah.
If you want to take them out. Yeah, that's.
The other question is, the property includes the area where the tanks are that are on site.
Above, right.
So
Yeah.
is it possible that there'll be contamination of the site that needs to be dealt with also?
John, just, no, the tank site is the tanks above?
No, I'm talking about the ones that are right there.
The little ones.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got a 500-page report from Fishbeck that describes their environmental analysis. I haven't read every word. That wasn't my
What did
responsibility.
it say?
We actually got a grant from the county to do a phase 1 environmental assessment that was provided to the proposals so that they knew the asbestos levels, the potential contamination levels, everything was identified in there. And we do have an environmental assessment done in that regard. And that was used so that they could make the to validate what they have. I think, John, I would just like to emphasize, I think you made a really good point about what is the value of the property. And from my perspective, and this is, I in complete disclosure, all right, I read actually every single comment that was in the survey.
Me too.
Greg did. We are not neglecting the public. We are, again, I've spent more time on this, reviewing this proposal, spending time making, you said, what would you like to see here? And Greg and I said, and we both said, you know what, some sort of event venue, some sort of, restaurant,
Brew pub.
use brew pub. I mean, I think anybody talked to me a year ago, but the problem is, okay, now we have this, that was the desire. Everybody wanted to keep the building standing. Everybody wanted to see what they wanted in that building. Now, The value of the property is obviously from these four proposals, 100% dependent on whether you save the building or not and what you put in it. All right. Now, so those that were tearing down the property are tearing it down very easily to understand what that cost is, and then redevelop it from scratch, gave you more money for the property than those that didn't. All right. Because, and how they configured their proposal, understand how their proposal was given. They also said that their bid price was up to a certain level, up to $400,000. What does the up to mean? That means if they get into it and they do what John was talking about, they find out, geez, we got to put another 100,000. That wasn't identified in this, site assessment. We have to address this and we have to address that. The developer isn't taking the risk. The city is. In other words, they're going to deduct it from what their bid price was. So
or it could be brownfield funding or any other.
or something else, if they had to address something that they didn't understand, that they didn't propose, there was risk to the city. So that's what Greg's talking about is before you, I mean, and this is the way I look at it is there's a property that you have valued. You have valued a piece of property as is at somewhere about $1.5 million because that's what you had bid to you. Now you can get an appraiser in and say, well, it's worth 2 million or 3 million. Well, we don't have any proposals on the table that are willing to give us that. The maximum proposal, so we know that it's at least $1.5 million as is, all right? Because that's the proposal that we have. Now you have a $1.5 million proposal. From our perspective, it's the highest proposal. And what we're saying is that I don't think we're going to recommend to you that if you don't accept that proposal, that you accept a proposal for $400,000. If you want to look at a mixed use and redo that again, what we're suggesting, and this is part of our recommendation is to award the capstone proposal and send that to city council for their review. If city council doesn't like that proposal, we believe that you should start over again. Not accept any of the other proposals. The other proposals are not providing adequate compensation for a property of this value. What we would do then is ask for other proposals with a minimum bid of $1 million. That way, we already know that some of these people that have bid lower are willing to come back and with a different proposal for a bit more money. We already know that. So if this is not the one that you're going to pick, if you're not going to pick the capstone proposal as is, we believe that the best scenario is to deny it and start over again, not accept a proposal well below the market value of the property. And then take risk on as the city to develop that property where you might get even less. That is not just like if you owned property on Lake Michigan and it was worth $2 million, but it had a cottage on there that they were going to tear down, and it was worth more without the cottage than with the cottage. You as a property owner are not going to accept something, to keep that cottage there significantly less. I think what we need to do is then resolicit proposals consistent with what their desires are for the community and accept a minimum bid consistent with what we now know the property to be valued at. So again, I think the committee though is willing to make a recommendation at this point in time. I think maybe Jerry, you can do that. If there's questions for me, like I said, we have listened to the public. I have read all of the comments from the public. I am not dismissing them. I don't think Greg is dismissing them. I don't think Jerry is dismissing, and I don't think anybody is dismissing anybody or suggesting that we didn't read it, we didn't hear it. If I would have written my comments a year ago, I probably would have said the same thing. I want to save the building if we can, but from my perspective, we have an obligation as well to get a fair market price for the property that we're selling. And if that means accepting something significantly less than the fair market value of the property to get something more in line with what, I want or somebody else wants, I don't think that that's the responsibility of the Board of Light and Power. We have a asset that we're liquidating. We have an obligation to the public and our customers to get a fair market price for that. And I think, we know that it's worth more than $1 million. And to accept a proposal for $400,000 because it's kind of, well, what you like, I'm not sure that that's representing the public either. So I think we've looked at it. That's our recommendation. I think it is a two-part recommendation. That one, recommend the capstone proposal, present it to City Council, and if that proposal isn't accepted, that we start over again in soliciting proposals for the minimum price of $1 million. That's the recommendation that I think is before you.
Well, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the diesel plant sale and the redevelopment proposal to Capstone.
I'm assuming that's the resolution that's in your packet, Todd?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes,
Comments?
I've got a couple comments. It shocks me somewhat that we tried to create this joint committee and only had one meeting. And that there was disagreement on moving ahead before getting a survey of the public. And the public was surveyed. What you want to take back to council had the support of 12.5% of those who responded. And a large number of people did respond to that survey. I don't think this has a prayer of being approved by 4 members of City Council. And I think that whatever happens concerning this property has to be a joint partnership, not us saying to them, here's what we think we should do. And so I'm really not in favor of it. If we do go ahead and look for new requests, it would be my fervent hope that it would be a combination of City Council and BLP board members that put together whatever is sent out. I appreciate your work on this, Greg. I know you've done a good job, and that's just the way I feel, and it's based on what the public has told us.
And I'd like to point out that, less than 10% that were surveyed responded.
I'll call for the question.
Renee? Please poll the board.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Keefe,
No.
Director Nasser,
No.
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Zmant,
Yes,
Motion is carried. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. All right, now back one item on the agenda to the satisfaction survey. First item is the cover sheet here says January 2020. Obviously, we kind of missed the turn of the year there. So the survey was conducted in December of 2020, and the results before you were finalized on January 15th. Next slide. Next slide. Well, let's stay on the table of comments here. What are we gonna, let's go back here. So there's a lot of information here. There's a lot more information that you did not have. Anybody would like to see the raw data? I think, John, you did last year. We're more than happy to give you all the raw data. It's another 50 pages or so. So we can give it to you electronically. It's probably the best way if you'd like to see the raw data. Great Blue, they have been doing this customer satisfaction survey for this is the 5th year. So, and how they've done that, just from a perspective, is the first year, the 3rd year, and this year were what they call their long survey. And then in the years between, in 2017 and 2019, they did a truncated survey with fewer people, fewer questions, all right? So you'll see some comparisons between 2020 and 2018, and then you'll see other comparisons between 2019 and 2020. And the reason for that is some of these questions weren't asked every year. So some of them, the only question that we had is, 2 years ago was the last time that we had that. Just to comment generally, there was some degradation in the performance this year. I think our first question is for Great Blue, they do these surveys all the time. Have they seen degradation across the waterfront with all of the surveys nationwide? What did they see because of COVID? Some of the questions you'll see, I think there was a question here about our office hours.
Excuse me, just, would you like to leave? Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. Yep, sorry.
There was a question about office hours, and there was substantial degradation in the office hours from the commercial customers. Obviously, our office hours changed between 2018 and 2019, and the satisfactoriness of our office hours in 2016 and 2018 were very high. The commercial customers had some degradation in the whether or not our office hours were adequate. I think that might be an indication. I'm just trying to read between the lines here because there was a degradation in that, quite a substantial degradation in that. So I think you'll start seeing that some of the results are having to do with some of the things that we did in 2020. One of the things is COVID related, is we didn't have our office open for much of the year. So obviously for walk-in traffic, obviously we were still in for phone calls and that sort of thing. So the office hours may be a reflection of the fact that we weren't open that much. And whether or not some of the people thought we should be or shouldn't be, I guess that's neither here nor there. It's the results of the customer. So some of the data, we did ask Great Blue for some sort of just general, and what we do subscribe. One of the reasons that it works good to do use Great Blue is because they do hundreds of these surveys with public power utilities across the country, and historically we've surveyed well above the average utility, public power utility. And even with the degradation that we've seen this year, we're still well above the average utilities. So that's information that we get monthly from as part of our survey participation with Great Blue. We have regular monthly meetings with them where they present the results of certain special surveys and that sort of thing that they've done, along with access to their national data that we can do for comparison purposes. But what Renee did do is ask them for, the specific degradation of certain performance indicators of in the last year. And overall, what they're suggesting is there are 9 organizational characteristics, that initial 9 questions there that they ask all of their public power utilities. The average in 2019 was 70.3, and the average in 2020 was 67.1. So again, those numbers are both well below our numbers, but there was degradation as a result, and they attribute it to the COVID related, people aren't as happy. And what they did see, they don't ask us this question, but one of the questions that they asked that we have not elected for them to ask is how close to your utility is to an ideal, the ideal utility. And it's interesting that of the utilities that they asked that question was almost down almost 11% in 1 year after being very stable for a long period of time. So I think and it's tough to say how much of this is related to COVID and how much is it not. But we did have the survey in December. In December, if you remember, was right at the height of the second COVID wave. So that might have some impact. Again, I'm not suggesting that it's the only impact, but I think you'll see as we go through this some changes in that. So let's go to slide 14. And again, I think you can go through this. I'm not going to go through it word for word. I think there's a lot of information here. I would encourage you all to get to this point. But the first slides are a lot of writing on a lot of different things, but basically they're summarized here. These 9 questions are what they asked basically all of their survey participants. This is the ones I was talking about, that the average for utilities on the overall is 67.1 in 2020. You're seeing that our overall numbers, if I can get to the right sheet here, our overall satisfaction numbers for residential was 80.7 and 79 for commercial. So right around that 80% number. And again, their average public power utilities were around 67.1. I do think there's a couple of things here that I think we need to be a bit cognizant of, and surely hit home to me, is when you tell people that we're not open and honest about our company's operations continuously for a year, suddenly everybody starts saying that you're not open and honest with your transactions. And yes, our public is hearing, and yes, they are making the comment that, geez, you are not publicly open and honest in your dealings. This is something that we actually foresaw on this, and we have tried. And like I said earlier, I think being open and honest is one of our values. We want to be open and honest. We are working very hard on this. But when people are out there saying that you're not open and honest continuously, suddenly there's some people that start believing that. So we are, if you look at the residential, that is by far the biggest mover in the survey, is the opinion that we're not open and honest. And I don't think any of us here can shirk that off and say, well, I am, but you aren't. All right. This is our organization that's being judged. And there is a suggestion out there that that we are not transparent, that you are not transparent in the way you do business. And only 69% suggest, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3 being the best open and honest, 69.4% rate you 1, 2, or 3 as very good, satisfactory. 31% are either don't know, which is a substantial number, or don't know, and or less than that. So again, how does that compare with the average utilities? Again, almost all of our rankings are well above the average utility. So again, we're comparing ourselves to ourselves, but in that particular category and the category right above it, and that's the 2 that are circled here. These are the 2, and the one above it, helping customers use less electricity. Again, this is of the things that we do in this utility. One of the things that we do, what I consider what we spend a significant amount of money, is on this item, helping customers use less electricity. You spend thousands and thousands of dollars putting bill stuffers together, sending the people information on how they can save money on our information. And we still get, even with all of our efforts, we still get the public saying, you're not telling us that. All right. So yes, we can change how we do it. Yes, we can improve. We're open for ideas, but we send this information out in 3 or 4 times a year. We send direct mailers. We have it on our webpage. We have blogs on it on Facebook and Twitter and everything else. We spend a lot of effort trying to get this information out, and it's still the lowest ranking on our sheet. It's also the lowest ranking on most other utilities as well. This is something that we send out the information, we put it out in whatever avenue we can, and customers aren't reading. Now, another thing that everyone has to know is a lot of these, the other 34 or 33.5% of these customers and residential customers, a large portion of them said, we don't know, right? Doesn't mean necessarily that they said we were bad. It just means we didn't know. We don't remember seeing that, all right? So next slide. I think, again, we did have some degradation here, primarily on the commercial side in our office personnel. And this is, I'm not sure what we're investigating this. We're gonna check into some of this stuff. We had solid rankings service for, upper, 90s and 80s, high 80s, and then even 100% in 2019. These are astronomical numbers by way of rating of our office personnel. Even on a national level, very high for a utility. I don't know what happened there, but again, whether it's an outlier, whether it's something that we need to investigate, we're going to try to look into this. Some of the stuff we just got last month, and I think John's point's well taken. If you don't do anything with this stuff, then it doesn't make a lot of decision. But we historically have looked at all of this stuff. We do respond. We put together plans. Part of our strategic plan is to query the public and then address their concerns. That is part of this process, and we're going to try to figure out. This one surprised me. It's something that we've historically done very good. We didn't change any kind of policies, procedures, personnel. So I'm not sure what that is, other than the fact that, again, it may be somewhat COVID related for the commercial industrial customers. Maybe they thought we should be more open than what we were, whatever. But for whatever reason, there has been a decreased satisfaction level. And this is odd. I mean, it was 100% a year ago. So there's something happening there. We're gonna check it out. Let's go on to the next slide. First contact resolution. Again, I think these numbers are again down a bit. Apparently, this question is basically one: do you have your questions answered? Do you have your points answered in the first call? Apparently, there has been some degradation here. I'm not sure we changed anything in how we do business. Again, some of these things are hard to tell because, is this just a result of people not being around? I'm not exactly sure without going back. These are random surveys, so it's tough to figure out why some of this degradation has occurred. But obviously it did. So we're looking at it. Satisfaction with field personnel. Next one. These numbers are, again, I mean, if any other utility would get these kind of numbers, this is incredible satisfaction rate. Anything over 90 is incredible. When they're saying 100%, that means they asked 400 residential customers or over 100 commercial industrial customers if they were satisfied with the field personnel that came out to help them. This is in a year where we also installed a automatic meter reading in every single house. This is not like they didn't have contact with field personnel. These numbers are again, something to be really proud of. Next slide. Again, this is the slide I was talking about earlier. Office hours, the change here. Again, change, typically, if you don't have any changes, you'd expect to see similar results. We did have changes in office hours as a result of COVID. Can you attribute the change directly to that? I don't know, but I guess this is one of those outliers that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because outside of the COVID, our hours were exactly the same as they have historically been. Plugged in newsletter. Again, this is something that I think we've had substantial improvement on. It is, I mean, you're having some improvement on both the residential side and the commercial side, so that's a good thing. So actually improvement in how they viewed the plugged in letter. Larry, I think this was one of your comments that you wanted the communication that we had more meaty. We've spent a lot of time in the last several years making those newsletters worthwhile and having information in them that's valuable to the public. And I think that's getting recognized. Website is the preferred method. Again, I think this too recognizes some improvement in our website. It continues to be the most popular way for our customers to get information from us. Online outage management. Again, this is one of those that use it are very satisfied with it, but there's an awful lot of customers that aren't using it yet. So again, you don't really see that without the raw data, but there's still a lot of people that are underutilizing this outage management tool. I think it'll be very, if the satisfaction level is very high with those that use it. Some experience in increasing bills. This again is change. Change is often represented in these studies. We have been reporting to you every single month over the last several months that the residential bills, because of COVID, are up, and the industrial usage is down. So a lot of people are seeing increased bills. It's interesting that they attribute it to 22% attribute it to putting a new meter in. Now, this is one of those things, again, we lost the messaging. Right now, you guys are all utility people. You've all been on the board for a long period of time. When you replace a meter, a brand new meter, put a brand new meter in, and you replace one that's 25 years old, which one do you think is more accurate? All right? Okay? Yet, when we put a new one in and it started reading accurately, we had a uncontrollable item going through Facebook and Grand Haven Informed and everybody else saying they're installing a meter that's highly inaccurate. It's a piece of junk. All right? Now, what do you think happens when we do a survey after that happened? We get 22 people, that's 22% of the population that is experiencing high bills. It's not because they had a hot winter. It's not because, or a hot summer. It's not because we had a cool winter. It's not because the meter is actually more accurate in reading properly. It's not because, we have COVID and you're staying home more. It's because the automatic meter that you just put in is inaccurate. Now, how are we supposed to respond to that? We put the information out. We tell people that the meters are accurate. We deal with all that stuff. But again, you're seeing in the survey exactly what people are being talked about in the public. All right. So how do we as staff, how do you as board correct the misinterpretation that's out there that the meters that we were installing were inaccurate? Right. So again, you change the meter. Some people are going to like the change. Some people aren't going to like the change. Obviously, some people's bills went up. We did not experience substantially out of the ordinary increases or decreases in bills when they changed their meter. That was really not the result of in changing the meter, with the exception of the one long month that they had when they actually changed it. we don't really see any differences in the usage patterns other than what's explained in those other areas. So issues with AMI installation, again, this was one of the 1-year questions that we asked. We asked people, were you inconvenienced by the AMI installation? Most people said they were aware of the installation. They thought it went well. What were some of the problems that you saw with it? Again, 22% of the people attributed higher bills to that. The shutoff of power, obviously that was unavoidable. When you replace the meter, you have to shut them off for a short period of time. But for the most part, I think most customers surveyed really didn't have substantial problems with the installation or its change. And I think, again, we had a very vocal minority of people out there that were unhappy with that process. Auto pay, direct mail payment. Again, we don't need to talk about that. Positive ratings for Smart Hub. Again, this is that this app that you can put on your phone. Again, those that use it like it. There's for some reason 2019. This is again an outlier. In 2019, we had people that in commercial that didn't like it, and suddenly it jumped up, almost 40 points. So I'm not sure why that outlier there. Yeah, probably a lot of people don't know. There you go. Thanks, Rob. The don't know went down substantially regarding Smart Hub, so people are becoming more familiar with it. Next page. Awareness of community ownership. This is interesting. I think we actually gained some through all of this discussion. We've gained some knowledge, and it's surprising. Some people don't realize that we're a municipally owned utility in what we do. But we ask these questions. But we did see some growth actually this year in people knowing that yes, you're a local utility, and the awareness of what that means for them has been reported here. Support for a diversified power supply portfolio. This is interesting. Again, I think generally, I wish John was here for this, but the comments from the survey actually are very, very positive, right? So we can wait for him to come back, but you see, do you support the Board of Light and Power's efforts to move towards a more diversified power supply portfolio? Again, it's in the 70% range in both residential and commercial. So again, and those numbers are going up. Well, they're up on the residential side, and there's about the same on the commercial side. So generally speaking, very high numbers of people who are supporting us going from one resource to many resources. Local generation, again, question's been posed out there. And then we posed it a little differently this year. We said, if there is no change in your cost, do you favor some form of local generation? And the numbers are, pretty high on both commercial and industrial. That given the fact that if and this question was posed in a very specific way, John, we did just talk about the diversified portfolio, and I did want to point out specifically the pretty strong support that people had from going from one resource to multiple resources. This one, so that's that slide. Generation, again, we kind of posed this a little differently. We said, if all things are equal, if all other things are equal, the cost from a cost perspective, do you favor local generation? Again, this number is pretty substantial. There is substantial support for other than economic reasons, all right? We specifically asked the question to take those people out that say, well, if it's more or less, we don't want to do it. We've changed the way we asked this question this year. So we said, okay, if the cost is the same, and what we've told people is the cost of the local generation project that we have will not change their bill. It is not adding cost to their bill. Almost 80% of the people support some form of local generation if it doesn't raise their costs. why would, and then we ask the question, why would you do this? Why would you do it? Again, local control and local jobs. Actually, local jobs was a really big deal to our commercial industrial customers. And then lower cost, obviously 37% still think that they would have a lower cost associated with local generation. Interested in renewable energy. Again, this is not a question that is gains the support amongst our overall population that some people think it does. All right. Very interested, really very low numbers. And these are actually below the national averages. All right. So those that say that Grand Haven demands this or that, I think we are moving in this direction. I think the industry is moving in this direction. But if we do ask our customers, and this is a scientific survey, randomized survey, it's not going to any one single population or whatever, the support for renewable energy transition in our community is lower than the national average. Doesn't mean, that's just where we're at. Then the Energy Smart program, again, we do have a low participation in this program. Light bulb rebates are in distribution on the residential side. Actually, this residential bulb participation rates kind of went down quite a bit this year. Again, that might have been because we didn't distribute them, didn't have people walking in the front door getting them like they normally have. So again, I think some of that stuff is explainable and changes that we've had to make to the program. But with that, I did want to, there was four particular questions that I did look at, more specifically the raw data. And the one with communicating with customers, being open and honest, maintaining a modern infrastructure, and then the overall questions. I did post, and we've asked those questions 4 out of the 5 years. And I did have a running total of all years rather than just the 2 latest years. And we did experience some degradation this year. So I think it's important to recognize the degradation. And then, and the biggest one is in being open and honest. And again, like I say, that's one of our values. We've lost the messaging on that. And I think it should be important for all board members, employees, and everything to take. I mean, if we're not meeting the expectation, then we have to say why, right? And I honestly believe that when you tell people over and over again that we aren't open and transparent, we suddenly become non-open and transparent. So I think we're going to see some of the things here. I firmly believe that we have done more in the last year to share information with our public that we've done in the 4 previous years that I've been here, bar none. So if we haven't done enough, that's fine. We can do more. But the suggestion that we are degrading and being less transparent than we have been historically is not supported by the record. And we have done a lot of things to address that. But I think it's important that we recognize that we're still losing the battle, and people have to ask themselves why. So again, I think I don't have anything else. I'm more than happy to answer any questions in that regard.
Next.
All right. You all, and we talked about this a bit earlier, I wanted to put all the information out there and then also to discuss this more fully. I didn't want to discuss it in the public comment period. I know there was some statements made there about the process that we had. We had a process where we have encouraged over the years through the posting of your email address on our own website, direct communication from the public to the Board of Light and Power. We have done that for a long period of time. We have a contact block on the top of our our website. All you have to do is hit on it, contact, sends an email directly to the board of Light and Power, our organization. If they want to send an email to the board members, easy to do. You just go to our website and send it directly to you. And for Larry in particular, we take those emails out, we walk them over to you and forward them to you, so we are using our own website. Over the last year, what's happened is we've had an organization take that process off from our own website and put it on their website. Didn't stop doing it on our website, but suggested that you go to their website, you put in the information onto their website, and then that forwards it to our email addresses and we distribute them. Now, I'm not sure how that improves the direct communication between the customer and the Board of Light and Power, but that's what's being suggested. What's being suggested is the best way for our customers to talk to you is to go through a separate website. Now, I didn't realize all this stuff, but two things happened in the last month. One of them is you received from your business readiness assessment from an independent organization, wasn't from Dave Walters, it was from an independent organization that came, and one of the primary concerns for municipal utilities today, and we fall into this regard, is cybersecurity. All right? What we are all required to do as employees, we are required to take phishing. If you don't know what phishing is, it's important that you realize it because you're using our BLP board. You're using our email network. All right. So your emails are coming onto our network, and because on those emails we are required to do a lot of things. One of the things is that we have to be trained on how to recognize certain emails and don't open them, because how utilities have gotten hacked over and over again. And if you want to learn about this, we all do. We're all required to. We all have to take tests. We have to see this. We get a scam of the week forwarded to us with how people get into the utilities network operating system. Is they do it through sending you an email from an organization that you normally receive emails from, i.e. vendors, i.e. The email looks like somebody that you automatically know, and you click on it, you open it, or you take it out of your spam folder and forward it to you. You are accessing and allowing that person that may not be that person into our network. That is exactly what we had been warned about in our business readiness assessment. That's why I tagged this. The other thing that happened in the last month is our communication firm that's helping us set this up has warned us that this particular software that's on this website that's forwarding emails to you is known for people coming onto those websites using that process to do exactly what we're talking about, is forwarding emails in the group of emails that might be contaminated. All right? Those emails would normally appear in your junk folder. And then again, Larry, you're not doing this, but the rest of you, I don't know if any of you even know, except maybe one of you, how to go into your junk folder and pull those emails out. But if you pull them out of there, you better have good reason to understand why. All right. Now, what we've found is that particular software that they're using is not recommended to be there to forward emails to you. The best way to do this, and there is no reason not to do this, is to forward emails from the board. If customers got an email to the board, do not forward it through this alternate organization. Do it and encourage it directly to board members. We're not blocking anybody from sending emails to the board. We're not providing any other. In fact, we've enhanced our own website to allow people to comment on certain things and send it directly to board members. We've made it easier to use our own website. What's being recommended is that our customers contact you directly rather than through this alternate system. So we sent an email from Jerry and Jack to the leadership of the website that was forwarding you the emails through them. And we said, we're going to stop this process. Here is how we're going to stop forwarding emails. We're not blocking emails from board members. We are just encouraging people to come on our website or use a direct email directly to you for these concerns that were brought to our attention. That was that.
You are blocking. According to this letter, you are blocking.
Yes, we are.
Okay, don't say you're not blocking, you are.
We are not blocking any direct emails to you. So if somebody writes an email directly to you, there is no blocking going on. What we're blocking on is an email from a customer through this website directly that is not direct to you. So what we're encouraging our customers is to contact you directly, which is frankly what I think y'all should want. Why would you not want customers to contact you directly? What value is provided by routing that email or letter through another organization? What value is provided by that organization? I mean, why?
How do I get the email?
What?
How do I get the email?
If somebody writes you an email, we go to your email box, we print it out, and we send it to you. Yes. So every email that you have got that was forwarded directly to people, since you're not using email, we have printed it out and provided it to you directly. So again, we are what happened now is we blocked the email, and now we're sending a response letter to everyone that has their email quote blocked with the way to contact you directly. In other words, you can get on our website, click on them directly. So we're providing to those people that have an email blocked, that we send an email back to them, and that now they're not just getting blocked, but they're also getting a response saying, here is the appropriate way, so that we don't have this concern. Here's the appropriate way to respond directly to a board member.
The letter that you received from John Jellema in response.
I didn't receive it, you did.
The letter that Jack Smith, Jerry Witherall, and members of the board received back from John Jellema indicated that there were substantial things in the way to prevent what you're talking about. Who are you talking to that is telling you that this is bad news? What authority are you talking to that says Wix is not a good idea?
I just explained to you.
Who?
The business readiness assessment refers to this type of stuff, and the organizations that we hire to train us on the use of our email are suggesting this is a bad idea, and almost any other. Now, of course, there are protections installed in this software, and quite frankly, they want you to use this software. So of course that organization is going to put out information that says, oh, it's safe. But if my question, John, is what value do we get that would warrant taking the risk?
The value you get is that you don't give the impression that you don't want to hear from the public. That's the value you get.
The only reason that we would get that is by someone saying that, because we are not blocking any email. Well, that's because people are saying it. And people are saying that this is blocking. We are not blocking any emails that come directly to you. We are not.
You are blocking emails that come through that site.
Correct. That's what that is correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
John, for you guys who can't hear me, this is Rob Shelley. I'm head up the IT department here. They work under my direction. What is going on with Wix, and it's common with any email blast type software, is they get put into a spam filter. So we have IT software, which is our spam filter, that is looking at every email message that comes into us, and it can pass or fail score. And what happens is when you see things from a Wix or other organizations like that, I'm not just picking on this one, they tend to say, hey, this is an email blast software. Here's necessarily who the original sender is, and people use this for marketing stuff, and bad actors take advantage of that. It then gets stuck in the spam filter. The problem with that is, even on a very simple level, is you may be getting it, but Jerry's not. And that defeats the whole purpose. They want the whole board to get it. And things are getting stuck in the spam filter. We don't set the rules for spam filters. This is an industry-wide thing that they are looking at and saying, okay, let's give a scorecard by this. And then it doesn't pass it. So we are saying that is not the appropriate way. If you go to our website and you put in the information, it will get to us. It will not get stuck in the spam filter. It will get through. Everybody's going to see it, because that's one thing we want. We want everybody to get all the data, right? We've talked about that over and over and over. The only way we can assure that is using the proper channels we know are going to get through. We know that those Wix emails that were being forwarded, we're getting stuck in our spam filter for certain people.
Why is that for some people and not for others?
Because other people can go in there and allow them, or maybe have done them in the past. So it's doing this calculation for you. So if you get a cold call on it, almost everybody that gets a cold call from Wix is going to get blocked. If you've used the service in the past, you may it may get through, because it's a learning software.
Well, I stand by my comment. My comment is the impression you're giving the public is you don't want to hear from them.
Well, I think that's what we're trying to say, is we are trying to develop processes that actually encourage people to talk directly to you under the rules and in fashion that we are currently configuring. Same thing with public comments, same thing with everything else. We are not trying to block anyone from talking. I'm not holding back any information. I am not excluding anyone. We are just trying to set the rules so everyone knows what they need to do to provide information. The problem is it becomes really difficult when one person says, wow, this is fine. Let's just accept that. And someone else says, no, you shouldn't accept that. And then it puts the staff and others in the process of saying, okay, we have to put together a process and a procedure that, first of all, passes the requirements of those that are evaluating us, that are warning us about doing certain things. And one person says, well, let's just do it anyway. And then somebody else says, no, don't do it. Well, then we have to make a decision of what the appropriate thing to do is. And then we get hauled into some third thing that's saying we're trying to block people. We are not trying to block anyone. We are trying to get people the opportunity and tell them how to provide information directly to the board. And it's confused when one person says, do it this way, and another person does do it this way, and a third group of people say, well, you can do that. We can really make it easy for you by going to our website rather than their own website.
How many of the 32 emails that you received since our last meeting actually were spam, actually were put in the spam folder? How many before you started blocking them? Any of them?
We have.
How many?
We do know that one of them was placed in your spam folder and you released it.
Yeah.
That's the only one we know of that was released inappropriately.
Why did you put it in there, Dave? I wanted to read it, darn it.
Well, and that's pointed out another thing that we are now going to have to do is you all are going to be placed into our program of phishing. So you guys are going to have to take training, and except for you.
I haven't released any email other than coming from that site. I have had other email. I have had other emails that I have gotten rid of that have been caught. 2 of them that I know of.
And that's our point is that what's going to happen is if you go in there, you should know the reasons why you should and should not release information out of there.
So are you
So
saying,
we're gonna train you, John.
are you totally blocking or are you putting them in the spam?
No, they're
folder?
blocked now.
I'm telling you.
Well, they can send, we're telling them how to send it. We are telling them not to use that particular mechanism because we are being advised not to do it that way. Now, of course, somebody can say, well, geez, it's safe, it's not safe or whatever. I don't take my rules, I don't take my recommendations from somebody that isn't in this business and we aren't paying to tell us what to do and what not to do.
So
We
you
are
have a-
being warned, John.
So you have a
that-
document that does that? That has said that?
I just gave it to you. Look at our business readiness assessment. They're saying
Where is
that
it?
the business readiness assessment that I provided you last month of the organization that came in here, they have a list of several different things under which they believe we are deficient on. And cybersecurity is one of the things that we are deficient on. And the phishing exercises and determining what emails you open and don't open and where they come from and where they don't come from, that is an area that we have been rule deficient in.
That isn't my question. My question to you, Dave, is do you have from them a specific document that says you should not allow emails from this site, from this Wix site? Do you have that?
We have that from our communication firm.
You have something in writing from?
Yes, from the communication firm that we hired.
I'd like to see it.
I'm not hiding it from you. I'm more than happy to provide it to you.
Then please do.
I mean, I think we've told you that over the last 3 weeks, that's what happened. We've been warned not to do this. Don't use this software. We've blocked it. And what we get is, well, geez, you're trying to do something nefarious here. We're not. We are just operating our email system consistent with the recommendations of those that we hired to give us recommendations.
Renee, on the website where you list all the trustees and the pertinent information, I guess, you can add information if you wish. Do you put our telephone numbers on there?
Oh, sorry.
Only email address.
We have your email addresses out
Only
there.
what?
Email addresses, not your phone numbers.
Nope.
So what is the reason for that? Well,
I mean, if you want your phone numbers out there, we can put them out
I
there.
would put my business office telephone number on there. I don't have a problem with someone calling me.
Yep, send me that phone number because I don't know which one's which.
What's that?
I don't know which phone number is which phone number, so if you want to send me,
It's 4367. Home office number. For people that still get telephone books, I get telephone calls occasionally, but
I
they
think-
either know me or they have a telephone book.
Larry, I think that's really a good, for those that don't know, Larry is not a regular user of email. So by putting your phone number out there, I think most of the other board members would prefer that they get an email.
Yeah.
And not use a phone call, but for you, that makes all the sense in the world. We'd be more than happy to put that on there.
I'm happy to talk to people.
I think all the board members are, but again, I think city council probably used to do the same thing, and now all city council has is emails. So again, we're here to facilitate communication directly with you, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. And quite frankly, we're getting kind of beat up on it, and I'm getting a little tired of putting together a system that actually improves the communication with the board, and then getting told that it's insufficient or nefarious or some other problem that we're doing. We are not doing anything out of what every other utility in the country is being recommended to do. We are not being non-transparent. We are not blocking things that shouldn't be blocked. We are not getting in the way of and charging extra for FOIA requests. We are doing the exact same thing. We're holding public meetings and everything else exactly the way we always have done. In fact, we are improving substantially the amount of information that we are providing out to the public over the last year. It's not even close, not even close to what we were doing 3 or 4 years ago. So the suggestion that we're getting worse or we're not doing something that we should be doing, quite frankly, it's stuff that you are going to get pushback from staff on. We are spending a lot of time. And then we come into the board meetings and we get beat up that we are not. And on every single email I'm getting from this group, we have not conducted independent, transparent evaluations. That is simply not true. We've linked them all on our reports. We have done tons of independent study to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars that the board has spent on independent reviews. MPPA does an independent monthly review of our power supply every single month. This stuff that we're not doing independent, transparent work that's available, if all you need to do is ask for it, we'll give it to you.
Point of order. Let's get on with this meeting.
So I think what we wanted to do is,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
okay, well, the next item is continuation of the same discussion, all right? We are reporting to you on update of customer engagement and BLP customer outreach efforts, all right? And here's an example. Here's a perfect example. Me, Jerry, Renee, Eric, Rob, Lynn, we have all been holding numerous meetings. Is that? Yeah, I mean that slide there doesn't even talk about all of the individual meetings that 43 we have held 43 independent meetings with any individual that wants to meet with us. If someone on this call wants to meet with us, we are more than happy to meet with them, set up a time. Jerry has spent incredible amount of hours talking to the public. I have spent in the last month at least 25% of my time, 25 to 30% of my time has been spent in these individual meetings. The suggestion that we are not open to anybody coming in, listening to the presentation. My presentations are only at 20, 30 minutes long, and typically the other half hour or more, some of them last more, are questions and answers and input and feedback. The suggestion that we are not doing this stuff is simply wrong. It's wrong, and it's not truthful. It's not truthful when people say we're not doing this stuff. If we're going to get hammered for not doing it, then we might as well not do it, because I'm spending a lot of time doing it and I'm still getting hammered for not doing it. So if you don't want to get us credit for doing all the stuff that we're doing that you told us that we had to do, we weren't adequately communicating to the public. We're getting negative responses. So we go out, we up our game, we do all this work, we hire outside people to help us. We dedicate all of this time and energy to improving our communications, and we still get hit for not doing it. It's simply wrong. Now, a perfect example is you have an email here of information that after we've met with our largest customers, this group goes around and sends letters to those customers and wants to meet with them. We give them the facts. Then what comes around is this group comes around and provides this. This is what they're telling people, plus what they tell them in the meetings. All right, let's look at this. Now, you all have gotten, in the last month, I have written letters directly to this group, and I've said, here is the claims that we are hearing. 15 claims. You all got a copy of this email and the response from it. I said, verify these claims. Tell me these are your concerns, and we will address each one of them independently. We are reading their website. We are attending their meetings. We are doing all of what they're requesting us to do. but they're still providing information that's contrary to what we're saying. And you're saying, well, they're entitled to do that. Of course, they're entitled to do that. But one group is presenting the quote facts, and another group is presenting the quote opinions. And you say, well, that's not true. That's not true. Well, you know what? This group asked me they've asked me to tell them when the information that they provide is not accurate. All right? Well, I'm doing it right now. All right? Because the biggest question that we're having is how our rates with our largest customers, the biggest thing is how our rates compare with others. So let's pull that up, slide up, please. So on your desk, you have a sheet, all right? In this letter, they have attached, again, information that I have provided to you all that we had a discussion on 2 months ago. And I told everybody, I said, this information is not rates, all right? So if you remember this chart that we had with all of the utilities listed in all of the different categories, and John and I had a big discussion about whether they were rates or not rates, all right? Well, this group attached to the letter a statement that says they took the information directly off that sheet, and then they said, these are rates. They're not rates. And then the statement was made, and they do a bunch of comparisons here about our rates to their rates. Different people, different combinations of rates. And I said 2 months ago, I said, beware, these are not rates. They are average classes of revenues. So what I've tried to do is as simply as I possibly can, done a rate comparison, all right? So what this group is saying is we are attached a rate sheet. This is not a rate sheet, right? The rate sheets can be found. If you look on this in the small print underneath, you see BLP rates are found on our website on this date, or on this website. Go to our website, you can get our rates. You can go to Consumers Energy and you can get their rates. You can print them out. Those are rate sheets, all right? So what I've done here is I've printed out Consumers Energy's rate sheets, effective January 2021, current rate sheets. And I printed out our current rate sheets. And then what I did is I've looked back over the last 7 months in each rate class and determined the average customer in each rate class, all right? So that's what you see here. So the first category says in our RS rate, we have 12,921 customers that we billed last month. I went back over the last 7 months and I looked at what their average bill was. Their average bill was for 656 kilowatt hours. I applied our rate to that customer, and our bill for that period of time and the bill for January 1st for 656 kilowatt hours is $89.97. That equates to 13.71 cents a kilowatt hour. All right. Now what I did is I went to Consumers Energy's rates, their published rates. And contrary to what's said on this sheet, Consumers Energy only has a single rate book. They don't have a different rate book for Spring Lake. They don't have a different rate book for Muskegon. They have a single rate book for all of their customers. You can go online, you can print it out. If you print out their RSP rate, which is their basic residential rate compared to our basic residential rate, and you apply that rate to 656 customers, you will get $118.97 or 656 kilowatt hours. Now, that is a 32.2% increase if we apply your bill to Consumers Energy's rates. Now, is that what this sheet says that people are turning around? Is that what they're telling people? That our rates to your rates are 32%? Now, you say, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, you're right. For the 12,927 residential customers That is $375,000 a month. Is that what they're telling people? Is that what they're telling people, John, in this letter? Is that true?
What they're comparing is not consumers.
Yes, it is.
They're comparing ceiling.
On Consumers Energy, it says residential rates. Our rates are 14.2 cents a kilowatt hour, and consumers' rates are 15.9 cents per kilowatt hour. That is a 12% difference. Okay, we'll talk about industrial, and we'll talk about industrial, we'll talk about it. We're only talking about residential. These are not residential rates, all right? These are residential revenues divided by the kilowatt hours.
John, please into the mic.
Showing the average residential. Grand Haven average residential rate is lower than consumers. I'm reading right off of it, Dave.
And I understand that difference is
So don't say they're not.
12%. 12%.
Okay.
12%. The actual calculation is 32%. Again, these now residential is by far the
How
easy
about
one.
how about all the other stuff in here, Dave?
Okay,
That they put down here? What about, are we gonna spend, what is it? Are we gonna try to
Let's-
make a 12.5 megawatt
John,
plant
before we-
for $30 million?
John,
Are we?
John,
Are we
before-
going to do that?
we
Are
are
we gonna
gonna,
use it 5 to 10% of the time? You've disparaged this whole letter on the basis of what?
I'm going to finish the rate calculation first, and then we are going to address, as I said we were going to, their website, the other points in
I'm
this
not
letter.
I'm not gonna end in, I'm not
Okay.
gonna spend, it's 7 o'clock. We've been here for 3 hours. I am not gonna spend another hour with you arguing over what's on their website.
Okay,
Okay?
I'm not going to. We are not.
Sounds
the
like you
only-
were.
The only thing I'm going to talk about is rates, because quite frankly, you guys, if you don't understand this, if you, because I'm going to talk about industrial and commercial rates, which are a lot different, all right? What is being told to your customers is that our commercial industrial rates are not competitive. They are cheaper. I've got my largest customer coming to me and saying, our rates, they're telling us that our rates are more expensive, are more expensive than Consumers Energy because of this. Okay, now let's go.
Oh, they said that because of what they're being charged at their plant, which is being serviced by consumers, not by that.
Understand that, all right? So your charges are a rate times a usage. You can't compare rates times one usage to rates times another usage. It doesn't work that way. How you use power will determine, particularly in your large industrial class. It only makes sense, all right? When you use power very flatly at one plant and very sporadically at another plant, if you're on the same rate, one customer will be billed differently than another customer. So the only way that you can do these calculations is to compare one customer on this rate and the same customer on another rate. That's what I've done, all right? So let's look at number 2 here. We have 1,517 customers, small, commercial, industrial, and municipal, that average only 1,650 kilowatt hours. There are some industrial customers in that rate class. We do not have a rate class for industry. We do not have a rate class for commercial. We have a general secondary rate, a large secondary rate, and a primary rate. And we have commercial, industrial, and municipal on each one of those rates. And when you looked at this particular sheet, as I was telling John 2 months ago, is this particular sheet contains industrial customers on all three rate classes, not one rate class, all three rate classes. So if we look at the general secondary rate class, these are small industrial commercial customers and retail establishments that only use $1,600 a kilowatt hour. Their average bill on Grand Haven Borderline Power is $257. If we took those same customers and applied consumers' energy rates, it would be $300.79. Same rate, same rate class, same customers. They would see an increase of 17% to go from consumers' energy from BLP customer rates to consumers' energy rates. On our demand energy large secondary rate, these 223 customers average 1,200 or 12,807 kilowatt hours. Their average bill on the BLP on January 1st, using January rates, is $1,634.35. On consumers' energy, it's $1,904. So they too save almost 17%, 16.5%, 16.7%. Those are two different rate classes that happen to have the same savings for those particular customers. Now, when you get into large primary customers, first of all, you need to understand that consumers' energy has 3 different voltage levels that they serve primary customers at. If they own the substation, we don't have anybody, all of our customers are on one primary voltage. What's considered consumers' energy voltage number 3.
Good or bad?
They have very, very large customers that own their own substation. So what do? They lower the price of that power that they're providing those customers because that customer owns the substation. Those customers are all included in this. All of the Dow Chemicals, the GMs, all of the, and in Zeeland's particular instance, the Gentexes and the Bristol Myers. Gentex is 5 times the size of Shape, our largest customer. Bristol Myers is twice the size of Shape. Those customers are what drives Zeeland's industrial costs down. They're much different customers than ours. And I know Zeeland better than anybody, all right? Zeeland only has 14% residential customers. Now, when you have 14% residential customers, you can lower the residential customers' costs. When you have all your customers crammed into a little district like Zeeland does, your costs are lower and your rates are lower because the customer uses the power differently. Now, that being said, if you take Grand Haven's customers and you apply consumers' energy's rates, these are the Shapes, these 52 customers are our largest industrial customers. You take those customers and you average them out. Now, this is lower than what it normally is because of COVID. So I took the last 7 months and those bills are about 10% lower than they normally are. But the average of those 52 customers is $22,564 a month. Now you take those exact same customers and apply consumers' published rates, those rates are going to be $23,520. In other words, those customers are saving 4.2, or their rates would go up 4.2% going from us to consumers' energy. That is not at all what they're being told. They're being told that if Grand Haven instituted consumers' energy's rates, these customers' rates would go down 27%. 27%. Now, if I'm my largest customer and I hear that my rates could go down 27% if I switched our rates from consumers to Detroit Edison, or excuse me, from Grand Haven BLP to consumers, don't you think I would want to do it? Of course I would. Of course I would, but this is not reality. This is not reality. So this is reality, all right? This is, all you have to do is go to their website, pull down their rates, put the usage in, and compare it. This is what a rate comparison is. This is not a rate comparison. And that's what I told you 2 months ago. When we presented this, this is not a rate comparison because what this does is doesn't recognize the differences in customers. And yes, of course, when you include Hemlock Semiconductor, which is bigger than the whole town of Grand Haven, it's 100 megawatts by itself. When you include Switch in Grand Rapids, if you include, that's a data processing that's almost 100% load factor. You include those customers, it drives the average industrial costs down. But you know what? We don't have any of those customers in Grand Haven.
We're not going to either.
So
Anyway, Zealand at 14%, you said, is that by count or is that by dollars revenue?
what's that?
Zealand at 14%. Is that by count of numbers or by revenue?
It's almost the same. I mean, well, their residential rates are a little bit more. They're quite a bit more than their industrial, but it's about 14% of their kilowatt hour usage, and their rates are higher on that, so their revenues would be slightly higher than that.
And you say the count is only 14% of the total? How could that be?
No, the kilowatt hour usage.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. So if you take Consumers Energy's rate and you can, for 1 month, Grand Haven BLP is supplying their customers $550,000 of savings. Now, I hope that this board would love to advertise that. Isn't our goal to tell people that we are saving them money, that we are doing a job? It seems sometimes I get more pushback for actually telling people the truth because it's not the narrative that some people want to hear, but this is the truth.
It's very specific.
It's very specific.
Right.
And
This thing is an aggregated.
this thing, I've told you that. I give you this information every way. And what I tell you is the best comparison is to say, okay, from a total cost perspective, if you want to take a utility like Consumers Energy and you want to take a utility like the BLP that somewhat has the same breakdowns of customers, but let's face it, Consumers Energy has a lot bigger customers. If you want to look at the total revenues that they get from all of their customers and divide by the total kilowatt hours, you can get an indication of how their cost structure is. That's all. That's the only reason I give you that information every single year, because quite frankly, APPA publicizes it and puts it out there. But those are not rates. Those are revenues. Those are total revenues. And that's a measurement of how your system is on converting dollars to kilowatt hours. But you can't neglect the usage patterns of your customers in that regard. I know Zealand, you guys know I was the manager there for 20 years. There is no way ever that Grand Haven is going to get their costs down to Zealand's rates, to Zealand's costs. They're not going to do it, all right? It's insane to suggest that you can. It has nothing to do with how effective your management is, how good a power supply. We are getting our power supply from the exact same spot that Zealand is. I can assure you on the wholesale side, Zealand's cost of service on the wholesale side is not 5% different than ours.
Well, the greater concern might be, Dave, when people look at the bigger picture, is that the Board of Land Power is proposing to put in 5 machines at 2.5 megawatts each, and they know those damn things aren't efficient. And they don't even, when you start talking about taking rates off from that kind of productivity, none of this makes sense.
I just projected, and I'm more than happy to supply it to people.
Yeah.
I just updated our 20-year projection that we're going to be using for power supply.
Well, the point is you're not running the machines.
No, I've included the machines with their anticipated output levels, less than 5%, their capacity payments, everything is included. I'm more than happy to sit down with you, Larry, and give you the full with and without CHP.
Well, with less than 5%, what are you talking about? A total usage for the,
I, I, I think, I think the point is, Larry, is your statement is we are updating all that information. We're going to provide all of the right information, but be careful what you say, all right? Because
I'm careful what I say, but it's common sense to me that.
it's not common sense because it's not true. It's not true, all right? I would love for you to come in. We can go over why it is what it is and how that makes sense, but there is not a $30 million difference between installing the equipment and not installing the equipment on our 20-year power supply. That is not accurate. That is not accurate.
Yeah.
All right? So I think we need to get the right information out and start getting the right information out to correct this stuff.
I would suggest that you do share some of the
I'll-
responsibility for
I'll read
reading
some.
them.
I'll read some. I read them. Go ahead. I'm not going to read that guy that printed his column in here. He just basically took it. We're not, I mean, I don't know what the board feels like, but basically the guy just forwarded us his column from the trip.
Did we end the last?
You can read that one.
All right. Pay attention. Okay, this one's from Tom Schneider. Message to BOP. I do not bromide a new power plant of any size should replace the now closed existing plant. Our power supply has been very good since the plant closed. Why should we spend the money for duplicative service, not to mention the environmental impact of the new plant? Next one, Karen Chappell. I and my family are against any progression, planning, or rebuilding of a power plant in Grand Haven. Our children need not carry the weight of our bad decisions and increased environmental effects. Now, if they did not check that they want it read into the public record, do we need to read it? No. Okay. Next one. The unchecked one was Karen Van Dorn. Lana Fedewa. Please take a pause. Do not build a new expensive power plant in the office. Jacob Mitchell. Greater transparency is needed from the BOP. Investment in a fossil fuel plant is unacceptable. Invest in renewables or buy from the grid. Consumers' power is actually focused on modernization. Would be nice if we saw this forward focus from BOP. Next one is from EW. I am 100% in agreement with construction of a new power plant. Thank you to the BOP employees for a great job keeping the Sims plant stable over the last several decades. This one is not checked. It's Daniel Ireland. Next one, Laurel Wilson. The plan to build another plant will not be in service at least 90% of the time and is already not enough to support all the building that is happening. Seems very short-sighted. For our community to go into debt for 30 years makes no sense. So much is changing every day. Chances are the plant will be obsolete long before the bill is paid. We, the people, do not need more debt that we will get nothing for. In Ireland? So if you go to the Grand Haven Energy Organization website, at the bottom of the form that you fill out, it says, do you want this read into the public record? If you want it read, you check the box. That one's not checked. The next one is from Brendan Thomas, and it's the article that he had published in the Grand Haven Tribune. Everybody's read that one already, I believe. Next one is from David Mann. As a resident of Grand Haven, I ask you to pause any planning of any fossil fuel infrastructure. At first glance, this looks irresponsible and self-serving. I will be educating myself, family, and friends as I do my independent research. Please read my message and enter my objection at your next board meeting. Thank you.
Message to the BLP, please, please, please. This is from Field Reichert. Please, please, please open your minds to alternatives to your plans for Harbor Island. The October 31, 2020 issue of The Economist has an article about changes in renewable energy and energy storage. Among the facts they share is that from 2014 to 2019, the cost of solar energy has dropped 82%. At the same time, the cost of energy storage batteries has dropped 89%. On January 15, 2021, the Center for Strategic and International Studies published an article about the fluidity of the natural gas market around the world. Yes, we have low prices now in the US now, but they have increased more than 7 times in other parts of the world. Prices can change very quickly. You are moving the ball exorbitantly forward to build your Harbor Island project. Please stop and think this through. Get viewpoints from consultants, other than those carefully selected to confirm your perceptions. Respectfully, Field Reichert. Kristen Rachel, I think the plans should be put on hold. I would like to read this into the public record. Linda Barnes, please hit the pause on the current extensive plan for Harbor Island. More thought and research is needed before proceeding with such a large amount of our money. Thank you. Juliana Chizik. I apologize to anybody that's on the phone that I'm with the names. I'm against the BLP's plan. I think an independent that is selected by the citizens should review the plans, and then the community should get a vote on whether we want it or not. Not all of us in this town make millions. And we don't want to be held liable, financially speaking, for the project that us citizens were or are not aware of. We want clear transparency, and we want it to be widespread with any action that happens well. We want to be for the community. Transparency with citizen input is the way to go. Thank you for your time, Juliana. Please pause and be very thoughtful about this. Or excuse me, this is Lawrence Burns. Please pause and be very thoughtful about this. My electric bills have been over $100 a month since this whole idea of going to the grid was implemented. Rates have not gone down. I would like this read into the public record.
Peter, I'm going to apologize too for name slaughtering. Peter Marozan, Marozan. Dear BLP, I am outraged at the mismanagement of our public funds and stand opposed to the proposed office and energy plan. In a time when private business is drastically reducing office space in the future, points to more and more work at home, we have no need for this office. We have adequate resource available for meetings in Grand Haven. Please stop this mismanagement of our public funds. Next one is from Martin Jennings. I'm a Grand Haven resident and have a CPA. I am hard pressed to understand how a $30 million plus investment in a new power plant and offices can provide us with a more reliable and less costly source of power. I understand that we have been sourcing all of our power from third parties for quite some time with no interruption. If the argument for rebuilding is that we can produce our own power cheaper than buying it from third parties, what is the payback on our $30 million plus investment? If this is to protect jobs, wouldn't we be better off dealing with that issue directly? Can you show me how this investment is fiscally responsible? Also, the field of power generation is rapidly evolving. It seems at a minimum it would make sense to pause this project. I look forward to your response. Respectfully, Martin Jennings.
There you go.
Sure.
Sue Rowe, let's wait for more money. Let's wait for the economy to recover. And only think rates will increase after the new plant is built. We can use offices on Eaton. Not that long ago that they were remodeled it. I would like to read this into the public record. Well, actually, this one was unchecked, so we got one. Oh, here's another one unchecked. Checked. Here's Sue. Unchecked, Sue Rowe. Unchecked, Katrina. I did. I read it. I made a mistake. We got extra publication. Katrina Spry is unchecked. Betty Clark. I would like a hold put on the plans to build a plant now. Anna Berkowitz. I oppose the plan for the natural gas plant to be built on Harbor Island. In short, I think it is premature for the GHBLP board to settle on this option now. There are other viable alternatives that should be considered before locking us into a technology with built-in obsolescence, pollution issues, and severe environmental consequences for the future of our community, not to mention Lake Michigan and the entire state. Walter Davis. This is in response to Mr. Witherall's desire to stand corrected by the community. In 2007, science established 385 parts per million as the highest we would go without creating catastrophic changes in our environment. In November 2020, we stood at 413 ppm and climbing. Any installation of natural gas plants is immoral and a crime against the planet. Having a backup and keeping rates low is a rebarbative rationale of reprehensible proportions. I would also add, in the last year and a half, I would like to, Walter Davis, and I call him Mac because that's what he likes to be called, have corresponded immeasurably. And I have listened to him, and I think he has listened to me, and we've had really good conversation. So I would like to just say that I have listened to Mac more than anyone else has. So, and I like him. He's a good man. So
This is supposed to be them, not you. Let's go.
yes.
Okay. Cynthia Madsen. This is not the time to be spending tax dollars on something so frivolous. People are losing their jobs, their homes, their family members to COVID. Be a little sensitive to what is going on in this community. This is bad timing and bad PR. Laura Judge. West Michigan doesn't need another natural gas power plant. Please only consider renewable energy. Your grandchildren are depending on you to make the right decision for West Michigan. Mary Veach.
By the way, that lady lives in the house.
The last one? Oh. Okay, Mary Veach. The plans of the BOP at Harbor Island need a halt and a pause at a minimum. What's the rush? We receive the vast majority of our energy from the grid and will continue to do so. There are more Grand Haven citizens opposed to this plan to spend $30 million than 3 members of the board are unwilling to admit. If there is a mandate from the public, it will be known. I don't believe that to be true. Please pause to give time for the people to be heard. Marcia Peterson. Please do not go forward with this poorly thought out plan. I believe our future generations should not be saddled with a questionable proposal that will become obsolete and serve few. We are asking for a pause on this proposal. Dale Frey, or yeah, I think it's Frey. All ash that can be moved from the island must be sent to an operation that makes concrete for roads or bridges in order to avoid expensive and problematic waste sites. No generator of any reasonable size will guarantee electric power for Grand Haven. Most power loss will happen between the island and our homes due to storm damage and trucks hitting local power poles. It is more important that we make the state government take over the power plant south of town, and after doing a full cleanup of the property, convert it into a full recycling center that burns the plastic and wood that that cannot be otherwise reused. Plastic can never be recycled because the gas and oil that it is made of will always be cheaper to use than the plastic which is mixed with labels and food, waste, etc. Without burning plastic in a controlled manner, it will find its way into more and more plant and animal life around us. We can already find small amounts in our food and bloodstreams. That's all I have.
You done? I think the Harbor Island redevelopment plan is wrong for Grand Haven.
Who is it?
Daniel Davis. Oh, this is unchecked. Christine Marshall. As a taxpayer in Grand Haven, I completely disagree with the plan to build an office power plant on Harbor Island. It is the worst option for this land and lacks forward thinking. I strongly oppose the Lois Tyson. I'm sorry. You want to do this, John?
I'll be happy to do it.
I strongly oppose the construction of a natural gas power plant on Harbor Island or anywhere else because natural gas, like other fossil fuels, is disastrous for the environment. If our board members don't know that, then they must be, if nothing else, woefully ill-informed. In addition, the construction of such a power plant would be an uncomfortable waste of residents' money, given that it will have to be replaced by a more environmentally friendly power source a few years down the line. I don't know why we can't temporarily purchase our power from the existing grid until we can construct an environmentally friendly plant of our own. And I have to wonder, given the overwhelmingly convincing arguments against the construction of a natural gas plant, who would make money from this project? I think the community has a right to know that answer to the question.
Before we, excuse me. Go ahead.
Was Sherry Jackson?
Microphone, please.
How about Linda Barnes? Did you read her?
Yes.
Sherry Jackson was the last one that came in. You want me to read it? Okay. I'm opposed to this project and the fact that it will, as usual, not be done on an economical way. Please consider the feelings of many of us in the city that are already dealing with trying to keep a roof over our heads and food on our tables during these trying times. I would like this read in the public record at the upcoming board meeting. How about also Terry Jennings? We did Martin Jennings. Hers is different. It starts out the same, but gets different. All right. Terry Jennings' message to the BLP. I'm a Grand Haven resident and a CPA. Starts out the same way. Can you help me understand how a $30 million plus investment in a new power plant and offices can provide us with a more reliable and less costly source of power? I understand that we have been sourcing our power from third parties for quite some time with no interruption. Can you show me how this investment won't increase our power costs while also providing a reasonable payback? How long is this plant anticipated to run? And how many years before the investment is paid off? Please let me understand how this investment is fiscally responsible. Further, the field of power generation and storage is rapidly evolving. It seems at a minimum that it would be prudent to hit pause on this project. If this is to protect jobs, wouldn't we be better off dealing with that issue directly? Thank you. I look forward to your response. Oh, I just read Martin Jennings. Okay, sorry.
So my question, is that the last one, John? Okay, so my question is a lot of these are formulated, they're to the board, they're formulated in the frame of a question or a statement that may or may not be accurate, or that we may or may not be consistent with the information that we have. How's the board want to, how is the board going to respond to this? Or would you like us to respond to these questions on your behalf? I mean, we got all these emails coming in. I think, John, your point is that we should respond to them. If you would like us to respond to them, we will. If you want to respond to them on your own, individually, if you're going to respond to them as a group, then you got to do it for, we can propose, but if you want to sit in every one of these responses, I think they're owed a response.
I think it has to have the official response, Dave.
What's that?
I think the response has to be official,
They're not the same.
not just from one board member.
Well, the problem is that's what I'm saying is, do you guys want to sit and respond to every one of these questions during a board meeting? Is that what you want me to do? I'm asking you, what would you like me to do? I think so here's what we're doing, all right? So is what we're trying to do with all of these emails and all of these communications is we're trying to put them into themes. We're trying to get, a lot of these themes they don't understand how a power plant that doesn't run can make money. We can address that one. That's a pretty easy one to address. We can share the economics associated with this plant. I told you it's just updated. We can answer those questions if that's what you'd like us to do. What we're doing is we're pairing them together. We are also we do have a frequently asked question section on our website that I would encourage people to go look at, because 80% of these comments that we just received have already been responded to in a frequently asked question on our website. All right, so we've paired these things together. We have addressed them. Like I said, we are spending a lot of time responding to all these questions. Now, if the board wants to respond to them as well, they're to you. We are putting them together and responding to them in the fashion that we think is appropriate. But they are addressed to you. They're your correspondence, and I'm asking you: are you going to respond to them as well? Would you like for us to respond to them specifically on your behalf? I mean, how do you want us to handle it?
Before we adjourn, I would just like to comment on something that hit me tonight. About 80% of the 20-some phone calls that I got were predominantly from young female residents. And that was not what I expected, very honestly. And most of those letters, I don't think that I'm far wrong on this, 70 or 75% seem to be female. And that was interesting to me. I say that as far as responding is concerned, I would be happy to respond. I did not know, other than maybe one of all of the letters that you read tonight, I didn't know any of those people. And so something coming from me wouldn't be personal because I don't know them. And in that case, I think staff probably should do it. Now, again, we've got one more thing that we're heaping on staff. I would not mind doing it. Doesn't matter. It depends entirely on the rest of the board. I don't care.
The other point that I would encourage you all to look at, again, this is one of the downfalls of using the system that was installed, is if you go to the grandhavenenergy.org website, I think they release, and we're listening, we are watching, we are taking all of the information in, and I promised them that we would respond to them, all right? But if you look, they have did you knows. They have, I think, 16 or 18 of them now, did you knows. If you read the did you knows, and then you read the letters that are attached below it, in essence, what they've done is copied and paste, all right? They have just taken the information from above and said, please don't do that, all right? Please don't do this, because this is what I read. I don't want you to do that, all right? So we are putting together responses to the did you knows, all right? Every one of them, because every one of those 18 response, some of them are entirely accurate. Some of them weren't accurate. One of them says the Sims power plant wasn't run the last several years at all. Didn't produce any power. Obviously not right. Some of them are very easy to answer, but some of them, you know, obviously they say we don't see how, you know, a $30 million plant can make economic sense. Well, we need to answer the question, because you know what? I'm not going to recommend any plant that costs $30 million that doesn't make economic sense. I can assure you that. So I think we are going to respond to them. We are putting the information on our website. And I guess the question is that adequate for the board? Does the board want us to do something else?
If you're going to put together a response for the 12 or 16 did you knows, why would that not be adequate to just send them to each one of those people? I mean, why would we want to do any more than that?
Well, I promised the people from Grand Haven Energy and Forum that they asked us to review. I say this regularly. I say there's misinformation out there. What they've asked is they've said, put together the information, send it to us. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put the information together. We're going to send it to them. And then they've said they'll adjust their website accordingly if they agree with it or disagree with it. All right. That's fair enough. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to first send the information to the grandhavenenergy.org people, and they can either adjust their website and correct the information that they're presenting out there, or they can write us a letter back and say, we don't agree with that. Okay, then we'll put it on our website and we'll put out the information that's appropriate. So that's the plan on how to respond.
Jerry, I'd like to say something. This is Todd.
Go ahead.
In regards to answering emails that have been coming in through the third party, I would like to add that when they come into me, the address is no reply. So they actually come in, no reply. So I just want to throw that out there, you know, on responding to these.
You can't respond to them?
And the mic, John, I can't hear you.
They give you their email. You could respond using their email. I'm just saying, I just wanted, before you bang the gavel, did you know, Jerry, that it's 63% are women?
I have misunderstood women for 83 years.
63.
Hey, I'd like to add one more thing too about the upcoming virtual event next Tuesday.
Thank you, Todd. We do have, just for everybody's information, two things. Okay, what? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry. There's two things.
No, well, that was one of them, you know, and I wanted to bring up, you know, some of these questions that keep getting tossed around. You know, they would go to our website. They could actually watch, you know, we have 2 virtual events that you guys, you know, that we already have out on our website. One of them does talk about, you know, understanding a diversified power supply. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't understand this. How does this make sense? Well, I think watch the video, you know, and it could help explain and answer some of their questions. You know, and Dave, I'd like to thank, you know, you and, you know, Dave Costner and Pat Bolin for putting that together. I mean, it was very educational, and I'd highly recommend it to people who really want to know what's going on to, you know, watch that. And the last one that was put on with a cleanup, you know, with the team from Golder and Eric, you know, that was very educational. And, you know, I would say these people with these questions, you know, that a lot of the answers are already on our website. If they maneuvered around a little bit to answer, you know, and look for it, the answers are already there. That's all I have.
I want to mention that the website Todd's referring to is at grandhavenpower.org.
Okay. I want to echo what Todd asked me to say. So first of all, we are having a informational update to the public on Tuesday regarding our design work that we've done since September on the Harbor Island site. There shouldn't be any new information from board members there, but there's going to be some new pictures and that sort of thing on where we are in the process, any updated information, and we'll make sure that again will be posted on our website for all to see. And I would echo Todd's second statement as well about power supply. Interesting things have happened in the wholesale market over the last week. If you haven't been listening to what's happening in Texas, what happened in California in the last year, there's some really good information about why public utilities do certain things, particularly in the form of backup energy. All right. And Texas is a really good example of what can happen. They did have adequate backup. It was a complete failure of their system, wind, solar, and gas. It was a 30-year weather event, yes, but that weather event in Michigan would have been a normal occurrence. And what that weather event did to solar and wind on the wholesale markets, and I'm not talking about just an individual. If you guys want to learn, this is a really good way. Don't go to some, look on ERCOT's website where the markets are played. I was watching it regularly. It's like really, if you want to learn about how the power markets work and how certain things make sense, when the power goes to $9,000 a megawatt hour, 9,000 for 3 days straight, backup power makes a lot of sense. All right. Now, so you can say, so backup power is how we're justifying this asset. Capacity payments are part of that. So that's all part of learning about what we're doing. All right.
Texas has had a lot of problems.
Microphone.
Texas is off the national regulatory system, and they have tried to keep electrical rates forever. Well, it is true.
I'd like to
Their
move
rates-
that we adjourn.
That's not true.
Come on.
They have their own regulatory.
They do, in the state of Texas.
Let's adjourn this marathon.
I will second.
It's bigger than just what you said. Michigan doesn't have those kind of issues.
I guess they're done.